Hello, lovely listeners of the Paranormal M channel. Still having trouble sleeping? Don't worry, we've got you. I'm so glad the mysterious stories I share can help you sleep better. Thanks so much for your support. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now, put on your headphones, and let's dive into today's mysterious experiences. Okay, so this is going to sound a little silly right out of the gate, but I live in Australia, and I swear it's way more haunted than people give it credit for. Like, if you're even a little open to the supernatural, it's not subtle. You'll see things. You'll feel things. And I've been the kind of person who notices it without even trying. I started keeping a journal of my experiences when I was about 11, mostly because I was raised around it. My family didn't treat it like a spooky Halloween concept, more like weather, just part of life. And honestly, the most active place I've ever been is my grandparents' farm. Not a cute little hobby farm either. This is proper outback land. Huge. Bushland for kilometers, dirt roads forever, and the nearest town is basically a couple of streets and a pub. My grandparents, let's call them Nan Moira and Granddad Bill, live about 40 minutes from the closest town, and that town is tiny. Like, people still remember who won the school swimming medley in 2006 tiny. That's the vibe. And their farmhouse is old enough that you can feel it when you walk in. Like the house has watched generations come and go, and it's not done collecting stories. The house was built in two chunks. The original part is ancient, over 100 years old, and it's only a few rooms plus this good living room and a veranda. Then, years later, they added a newer section with a modern kitchen and another living area because, back in the day, the kitchen used to be a whole separate building. Like, you had to walk outside for several minutes just to make a cup of tea, which is absolutely insane, but also very old farm. And here's the thing, whatever's on that property does not like the newer part of the house. It's like the old spirits want the old layout, the old rules. The most activity always happens in a room that used to be where farmhands slept, early 1900s kind of era. That room connects to a guest room with bunk beds, and yeah, that's important. So the first encounter I clearly remember, I was about 9. My brother Ethan got the top bunk, and I was on the bottom. And the bottom bunk in that room always feels wrong. Not physically uncomfortable, just spiritually uncomfortable. Like you're being watched from behind, even though the wall is right there. Like your body knows something your eyes can't confirm. That night, it was stronger than usual. I woke up around 2 in the morning, and I was instantly wide awake. No groggy confusion, no dream haze. And there was a boy standing in the doorway, half in the farmhand room, half in the shadow. He looked normal at first glance, but the details weren't right. His eyes were this weird amber color, orange, yellow, brown, and his smile was too wide, like it climbed up into his cheeks in a way that didn't match a child's face. He just stared at me, not aggressive, not moving, just watching, like he'd been waiting for me to wake up. And it felt like ages. My brain wants to tell me it was maybe a minute, but my body remembers it like 30. Then he lifted one finger to his lips, like, shh, and closed his eyes, like he was telling me to go back to sleep. And the whole time, that feeling behind me was so intense, like something was there, something bigger, heavier. But the boy didn't feel like part of that. He felt like a buffer, like he was standing between me and whatever the awful presence was. Later, I found out there was a family story. My granddad's uncle, the oldest brother, died unexpectedly in that farmhand room decades ago. No clear cause anyone wants to talk about. Healthy one day, gone the next, and the details are always vague in that way families get when something is not right. So I don't know who the boy is, but if I had to guess, that's the only time I've ever felt like something supernatural was protecting me instead of threatening me. The second big thing happened out at one of the dams on the property, the one all the kids treat like a swimming hole. I was around 13, and I was doing that classic oldest cousin job where you're basically free childcare with a sunburn. There were a bunch of kids, ages like 6 to 12, and one toddler I was keeping an eye on, plus a farm ute that every kid learns to drive way too young on private land. We got out there late afternoon. It was an Australian summer, the kind where everything is bright and buzzing and you swear the air is humming. The kids were playing in the deeper part, and I had the toddler near the shallow edge. Then one of my younger cousins, let's call her Tilly, she was about 9, starts complaining that another kid, Noah, keeps grabbing her ankles underwater. Noah gets mad and swears he isn't. I did what any exhausted teenager would do and just told them to stay away from each other because I didn't want a fight turning into a drowning. As the sun started dropping, I called time. We had a drive back, and my Nan was the kind of woman who could scare you into punctuality with just a look. The kids start climbing out, but Tilly is lagging behind. And at first I honestly thought she was being dramatic, like pretending it's hard to get out because she wanted attention. Then she suddenly starts yelling my name, properly panicked. "Something's grabbing me! Help! Help!" I handed the toddler to my older cousin, waded in, and grabbed Tilly under the arms to pull her out. And I felt it. Resistance. Not a kid being stubborn resistance, not a slippery mud bank. It felt like something had hold of her ankle and was actively pulling her back down. And Tilly is tiny. She was all elbows and knees and barely any weight. There is no world where she could have felt that heavy unless something else was adding force. I yanked her up, and she came free like something had let go. And she bolted, straight to the ute. No thongs, no towel, didn't even look back. Which, if you knew her, would be weird enough. But what made it stranger was that she ran barefoot through the prickly weeds without even flinching. That kid normally refuses to walk anywhere if there's even a chance of stepping on a burr. Back at the house, my Nan noticed bruising and little cuts around Tilly's left ankle. She didn't make a big deal of it. She's very religious, the kind of person who will quietly acknowledge a presence once in her life and then never speak of it again. But later, when I asked Tilly about it, years later, she told me she thinks she saw a boy's face under the water when she was trying to climb out. Like a pale shape looking up, and then hands reaching. After that, heaps of the girl cousins around that same age had some version of a damn story. Getting tugged, getting pulled down. That place just doesn't feel like normal water sometimes. Now, the third thing is something my whole extended family knows about, even the ones who roll their eyes at ghost talk. We call him the shuffler, but the shuffler doesn't care about fences. He just walks. You don't usually see his face. You'll catch a shape, man height, thin, wearing old-fashioned clothes, and you'll hear the shuffle of fast, stressed steps. Sometimes you can make out bits of muttering, but never a full sentence, like broken radio static. One night, I was about 15, babysitting a pack of cousins while my grandparents went out. The older kids and I knew the rule. Don't acknowledge him. Don't call out. Don't stare. Don't invite interaction. But the younger boys, because of course, decided that was boring. They found a window, waited until the shuffler passed, and started yelling at him through the glass like it was a game. And the shuffler changed. The pacing got tighter, closer, like he snapped off his usual loop and came right up beside the house. The sound went from somewhere out there to right on the other side of the wall. The boys came sprinting through the house, screaming that he was looking in the windows. So me and two of the older cousins went to the exact window they'd been shouting from, and we waited. And sure enough, when the shuffler reached that spot, he lifted his head. We saw his face for the first time. His cheeks looked hollow, like he hadn't eaten in weeks. His skin was stretched tight, and his eyes were wrong. Mostly white, with this sharp little dark pupil that locked onto us like a pin. He stared for maybe 3 seconds. Then he kept walking. Nothing attacked us, nothing dramatic happened. No flying objects or screaming, but the energy in the house changed, like the air got sour. We all ended up sleeping in the lounge room together that night because nobody wanted to be alone in a bedroom. When my grandparents got home later, my granddad asked who spoke to the shuffler. I said we didn't, because we didn't. He didn't even argue. He just sighed like he'd seen it 100 times. The next morning, there was a path worn into the grass right beside the house, like someone had paced so aggressively and so repeatedly that the plants were crushed down to bare dirt. My nan was furious. The boys got absolutely demolished with chores, and they've never yelled at the shuffler again. And the last thing, I don't even like talking about it, because I don't know how much of it was supernatural and how much of it was my own brain being messy at 14. I was staying on the farm over the long Christmas holidays, 6 weeks because Australia, and my cousins weren't there yet. It was just me, my grandparents, and way too much quiet. One night, I was in bed, and I got that familiar stomach drop feeling, the guilt in your chest sensation that tells me something is close. And instead of doing the smart thing and keeping my eyes shut, I looked out the window toward the clothesline, and there were people. Not one or two, a crowd, maybe 15 or more, standing out there in the dark. They were thin in a sick way, grayish skin. Some of them looked wet, like they'd crawled out of water. And their eyes weren't eyes, more like tiny white points where eyes should be. And the creepiest part? They weren't staring at me. They were staring at the mirror beside my bed. And I know, okay, I know the whole don't have a mirror facing your bed thing. But it wasn't my house, and I was 14, and I didn't get to redecorate my grandparents' room like I owned the place. After a while, they started knocking, but it didn't sound like it was coming from the window. It sounded like it was coming from the mirror. And just to be clear, in the bed situations, it wasn't sleep paralysis. I could move. I was awake. I could sit up if I wanted to, which almost makes it worse because you can't write it off as your body glitching. I've got more stories, especially the ones that happened when I was older and allowed to roam the property at night with my older cousins on motorbikes and quads. But most of the farm stories with the little kids are tamer. More something tugged you than something followed you. And yeah, I have a ridiculous number of cousins. Big Irish Catholic family situation. There's always kids everywhere, and when you're around 12 to 15, you're basically drafted into babysitting. And then once you hit 16, you get replaced by a younger cousin, and suddenly you're free again. It's chaos. It's funny. It's exhausting. But the farm? The farm is the constant. I don't know if old land just holds on to things, or if some places get saturated, like a sponge that never dries out. All I know is I'm not out there doing rituals or chasing ghosts. I'm literally just trying to swim in a dam and sleep in a bunk bed. And somehow, that place keeps finding ways to remind me, you're not alone out here. Hey, so I've been sitting with this knot in my stomach for days, and I think I need to just say it out loud to someone who's willing to listen. I'm a freshman, and my second semester starts in about a week and a half, and I'm genuinely to go back. I go to this tiny, historically women's college in Georgia, Briarwood College. I chose it because the scholarship package was honestly too good to ignore, and I told myself the quiet campus would be perfect for me. I'm not a big, constant movement, constant noise person. I like slow mornings. I like calm. I like spaces where you can breathe. But the weird part is, when I was deciding, there wasn't much about the school online. Like, almost nothing. What little I did find felt polished in this very controlled way, like it all came from the same handful of official sources. At the time, I shrugged it off. Now it feels like it should have screamed at me. Move-in day started normal. Everyone doing that nervous smile thing, trying to act excited while secretly panicking. I got paired with a roommate, Kenzie, and she was sweet right away. While she was unpacking, I wandered out and ended up chatting with a group of girls I'd just met. You know how it is. First day, you cling to whoever seems friendly because nobody wants to look alone. We decided to explore campus together. That's when the started. Because a big chunk of campus is abandoned. And I don't mean like unused classrooms. I mean straight up forgotten buildings. Windows cloudy with dust. Doors that feel like they haven't been opened in years. Whole stretches where it's too quiet, like the air itself is holding its breath. At one point, we went to the athletic center, thinking we'd check out the gym and get ourselves hyped up. And on the first floor, we found this pool. Except it wasn't a pool anymore. It was empty, grimy, and looked like it had been drained and left to rot. The second we stepped near it, it was like the mood in the room flipped. Not spooky like a horror movie, more like being unwelcome. Like something noticed us and did not like it. We tried to laugh it off, because what else do you do? And then, because we were dumb and curious and it was day one and we thought we were invincible, we noticed the basement access. It was partially chained off. And I know how that sounds. I know. But I'm telling you exactly what happened. We went down anyway. The second my foot hit the lower steps, my whole body went cold. Not normal chills. Like that sudden drop you feel when you miss a stair and your stomach lurches. Except it didn't stop. The basement was huge and dark, and the floor was dirt in places, like it was never finished or it was just given up on. We all went quiet without even saying we were scared. You could feel it on everyone's face. And then, almost at the same time, we all turned around and bolted back up. We pushed through the back doors to get air, like we needed to prove to ourselves we weren't shaken. And that's when we saw another building behind the athletic center, one that wasn't on any map we'd seen. It looked older, like it had been abandoned for forever. Naturally, our curiosity kicked in again. We walked around it until one of the girls, Mara, found a door that wasn't fully shut. So we went in. Inside were old bed frames and desks stacked like someone had tried to clean out the place and then just stopped halfway. But what threw me was the bathroom. A full bathroom. Not a little utility sink, an actual bathroom, like people used to live or work there. It made no sense with the rest of it. We were poking around, whispering and giggling like idiots, when Mara sprinted back to us and grabbed my arm hard. She said she heard voices, whispering, from behind a partition wall. I pushed into that section like I was brave, but I wasn't. I was just stubborn. And I swear to you, I heard it too. Soft whispering, like kids murmuring. It sounded like English, but the words didn't land. Like my brain couldn't hold on to them. Every hair on my arm stood up, and I got that pure survival feeling that just screams, "Leave now." So I ran outside. I didn't even try to play it cool. I just ran, heart pounding, trying to act like I didn't believe what I'd just heard. I went back to my dorm after that because I was done. I was exhausted, and it was my first day of college, and I just wanted something to feel normal. Kenzie asked me, casually, like she was asking if I'd seen the vending machine, if I'd been down in the basement of our dorm. Our dorm is shaped kind of like an L, and we're in the quieter back corner on the second floor. There are 2 stairwells. The main stairwell basement has the laundry room, so that part is normal. But she'd wandered down the other stairwell. I told her I didn't want to go look, so she showed me photos on her phone. And the pictures were wrong. It was this completely empty room, dirty and half-finished looking, like somebody started building it and then changed their mind. No door, just a bare doorway opening into nothing. A single light hanging from the ceiling. No furniture, no purpose, just a space that felt like it shouldn't exist. After that, things didn't get better. They got weirder, and more often. People talked about the campus like you had to respect it, like you had to be careful what you said out loud. Upperclassmen told stories the way people do when they're half joking, but also not really joking at all. There's this long-running legend about a dean's daughter from the early 1900s. Most people call her Evelyn. Supposedly, she was humiliated publicly, rejected by the big student societies back when they were the center of campus life. The story goes that she died by suicide in a main building stairwell, somewhere very visible, like she wanted everyone to carry it. And it's not even the story itself that gets me. It's how people act around it. Because when you're alone in certain buildings, you feel watched. I don't mean I'm imagining it. I mean you catch yourself turning around, checking corners, listening for footsteps that never fully become footsteps. At night, walking back from a friend's room, it sometimes feels like something is just behind you, close enough that if you turned fast you'd bump into it. But there's never anything there. The vibe changes after sunset, especially near the academic buildings. It gets heavy, like the air presses down. Doors that are locked all day somehow end up open late at night. Not wide open like someone propped them, just unlatched. Waiting. I stopped studying in the academic buildings at night because my stomach would literally flip the second I stepped inside. Call it intuition, call it anxiety, call it whatever you want. I just know my body was telling me no. Even during the day, the woods near campus mess with me. Trails that should be straightforward somehow lead me off course. I'll think I'm following the path, and suddenly I'm in the middle of nowhere with no service, forced to pick a direction and keep walking until something familiar shows up again. It happened more than once, and it's hard to explain without sounding dramatic, but it feels like the place doesn't want you to leave on your own terms. And it's not just that story. Some people talk about waking up with scratches or bruises they can't explain. A few girls have mentioned that same crushing feeling of doom when they're alone, like the campus goes quiet in a way that feels personal. My real breaking point was when my partner visited. He's not dramatic. He's not easily spooked. I took him to see the theater because he loves stage stuff, and I thought it'd be fun. There's this small black box space in the basement area, and I opened the door with my phone flashlight and made some dumb joke about Evelyn, because I was trying to act like none of this was getting to me. The second I said her name, he turned to me and started sobbing. Like, real sobbing. Not misty-eyed. Full on, couldn't breathe, face crumpling, shaking. I have never seen him cry like that. Not once in the entire time I've known him. It took forever to calm him down. And when he finally could talk, he said it felt like this huge sadness rushed into him the moment I opened that door, and it wouldn't leave. Like it latched onto him. He kept saying, "It's not mine. This doesn't feel like mine." And that was the moment something clicked in my brain. Because the worst feelings, the strongest weird moments, the sense of danger, that something bad is about to happen sensation, seems to flare up when she gets mentioned. It's like the campus can tolerate you as long as you don't poke at that particular thing. But when you do, it's like you've rang a bell. Now I'm home, counting down the days until I'm supposed to go back, and I can't stop thinking about it. I don't want to live for another semester constantly bracing for something I can't see, constantly feeling like I'm being followed by a mood, by a presence that doesn't want me there. And the worst part is I don't even know what I'm asking for. I guess I just needed to tell someone, plainly, that I'm scared, that I don't feel safe, that my gut is screaming at me and I don't know if I should listen to it, or if I'm going to regret letting fear run my life. But right now, the idea of going back makes my chest tight, and I don't know what to do. Hey, so I've always had this quiet fascination with paranormal stuff. Not in a "I'm trying to summon anything" way. More like, I've spent most of my life listening for the strange little cracks in reality, you know? And honestly, it's kind of a family trait. My Nana, Ingrid, used to tell this story from when she was little, barely old enough to reach a window latch. She swore she saw her own grandma standing outside the farmhouse one evening, clear as day, even though that woman had been gone for a couple of years. Ingrid said it wasn't just that once either. There were other odd moments that happened around that time, like the house was still holding on to someone. Then there's my dad, Theo. He grew up in this creaky old place where the attic always felt wrong. He told me that one afternoon he was alone downstairs and heard a child singing up there. Not footsteps, not the TV, not pipes. Singing. Soft, almost cheerful. He went up to check and, of course, there was no one. My mom, Saskia, won't even entertain the topic. The funny thing is, I know she once tried a Ouija board with friends when she was younger. She insists nothing happened. But my dad, years later, told me a version where it absolutely did. Enough that it scared them into stopping. When I asked Mom about it directly, she snapped at me and told me, really firmly, never to mess with that kind of thing. Like she wasn't just annoyed. She was afraid. But yeah, me. The earliest thing I did, I don't even remember, because I was basically a toddler. I must have been about 2, maybe even younger. My great-grandmother, Alina, told my family that I toddled into her room, climbed up as best I could, and gave her this long, gentle hug. She said it was unusual, like I suddenly got very serious. And then, about 15 or 20 minutes later, she had her first stroke. She always claimed that hug felt like a warning, or maybe a goodbye she didn't know she needed yet. Years later, around 8 or 9, I started noticing what people call shadow figures. It happened on the walk home from school, especially in winter when the afternoons got dark early. I'd see something tall and human-shaped move past me at the edge of my vision, and the second I turned my head, gone. At the time, I wrote it off. Kids see weird stuff. You keep walking. You go home. But looking back, it happened too often to feel random. Then, when I was 15, something happened that still makes my stomach tighten when I replay it. I was in the bathroom late one night, brushing my teeth. I had this hoodie on, hood up, like always. The mirrored cabinet doors were open, so I couldn't see behind me, just the sink and my own face and that little strip of reflection on either side. And out of nowhere, yank. My hood got pulled backward, hard. Then again, yank. Then a third time, yank. Like someone was messing with me, but not playfully. More like they wanted me to react. My first thought was, ugh, it's Marcus, my stepdad trying to scare me. So I spun around, ready to snap at him. And I was completely alone. Door shut, no footsteps, no one in the hall. Just me, my toothbrush, and this weird, prickly silence that suddenly filled the room. The next year, 16, I had 2 more experiences, and one of them was, honestly, terrifying. My family went away for a holiday, and I stayed behind to house sit. It was nearly a month of being alone in a house that already had its own sounds and moods. I tried to act tough about it, but you know how it is. You hear a creak at 2 a.m., and suddenly you're listening to your own heartbeat. And then I heard breathing. Not like someone catching their breath, not like an animal sniffing. This was heavy and steady and rhythmic. Almost mechanical, like some kind of slow engine. It was coming from behind one of the sheds, where you couldn't see unless you walked around it. I froze, with a berry halfway to my mouth. The breathing got louder, closer, like it was approaching without footsteps, just that sound sliding toward me. And then it passed over my head. I know how that sounds, but I felt it, like something moved right above me, close enough to change the air. And in that exact moment, my whole body turned heavy. Not tired heavy, like gravity suddenly doubled. My upper body got forced downward, like I was being pressed toward my knees. I couldn't move. I couldn't even fully straighten up. And then, as suddenly as it came, the pressure eased and the breathing drifted away into the night. I didn't look around. I didn't call out. I just stood up the second I could and walked straight inside, locked the door, and stayed there. The strangest one, though, the one that feels the most like a scene from someone else's life, happened during Christmas a few years back. We were in southern Sweden visiting my stepdad's extended family. They were staying at this old estate house, almost castle-like, way out in the countryside. Private land, the kind of place you cannot just wander into. It was Christmas Eve, late, and everything was dead quiet. Around midnight, I stepped outside to call my girlfriend at the time, Mira. I remember my breath fogging in the cold, and the snow making everything feel muffled. We were talking about something normal, plans, gifts, nothing spooky at all. And as I'm pacing slowly, I notice someone standing under one of the lampposts. Just standing there. A person-shaped darkness, darker than the surrounding night, like the light was refusing to touch it properly. No movement, no face, no details, just that unmistakable outline. And I knew, absolutely knew, there shouldn't be anyone else outside. Everyone was in. There were no neighbors nearby, no cars. No reason for a stranger to be on that property, especially on Christmas Eve. I didn't say anything to Mira. I kept my voice steady, like if I acted normal, it would stay normal. But the whole time, I could feel my skin buzzing, like my body had decided something was wrong before my brain could finish the thought. Eventually, I went back inside, and I didn't mention it to anyone. Because what do you even say? Hey, I saw a person made of shadow under the lamp. You just swallow it and try to move on. And then there was one more thing. Late 2014 or early 2015, I can't remember exactly. This one was kind of my own fault. I'd been reading about sleep paralysis, people describing shadow figures, pressure on the chest, that whole nightmare between worlds feeling. And I got curious, like an idiot. I read how some people managed to trigger it by letting themselves drift off in a certain way. One night I was so exhausted, I accidentally slipped into that state without meaning to, like my body fell asleep before my mind did. And the second it started, I panicked. I tried to move, couldn't. Tried to force my fingers, my arms, nothing. It felt like my body was a locked door and I was trapped on the wrong side. Then came the pressure, like someone sat down on my chest. It wasn't just heaviness, it was weight, deliberate and firm, pinning me there. I could breathe, but every breath felt shallow, like my ribs were working against something. And I refused to open my eyes. I was terrified of what I might see if I did. I don't know what any of it means. I don't know if it's something paranormal, or if it's just the human brain doing weird human brain things. But I do know this. Those moments felt real in my bones. And once you felt something like that, once you've been alone in a room and felt a hand tug your hood, or heard breathing that shouldn't exist, or watched a shadow stand under a lamppost like it's waiting, part of you never fully goes back to normal. So, a while back, my partner Maya and I booked this tiny shipping container Airbnb out in the hill country, not far from Canyon Lake. It was one of those minimalist places, small, clean, kind of cozy in that we're pretending we live simply way. The wild part was the bedroom wall. One entire side of it was a floor-to-ceiling window, like a giant sheet of glass. During the day, it felt amazing, straight out onto this sharp drop-off that fell down into a rocky ravine with trees and scrub, like you could almost follow it with your eyes until it disappeared toward a little creek bed. But at night, it turned into something else. The first night was so quiet it felt staged. Not peaceful quiet, more like the world had been muted. No wind, no bugs, no rustling, just nothing. The kind of silence where you suddenly notice your own breathing and it feels too loud. We went to sleep with the blackout shade pulled down over the window because, honestly, the glass made me feel exposed. The bed was pushed right up against that wall, too, so close that if you sat up, you were basically facing the shade and the window behind it. And then, sometime in the middle of the night, 2:13 a.m., because I remember glancing at my phone afterward, we both woke up at the exact same moment. Like someone had flipped a switch. And right as my eyes opened, there were 3, maybe 4, loud knocks. Not a scrape, not a tap, knocks. Evenly spaced, heavy. The kind of sound you'd make when you're standing at someone's front door and you want them to actually hear you. It was right next to the bed, right on the glass. Maya's hand found my arm instantly, like she was anchoring herself. And I swear we didn't even have to talk. We both knew where the sound had come from because the bed was basically pressed against the window. You could feel how close it was, like the knocks were inside the room with us. My first instinct was to yank the shade up. I shifted like I was going to do it, and Maya squeezed my arm hard and whispered, "Don't." Not angry, not dramatic, just genuinely afraid. Like she didn't want to invite her eyes to confirm whatever our ears had already heard. So I didn't lift it all the way. Instead, I did this stupid, pointless thing where I got up and checked the front lock, like that would somehow fix a window problem. I even slid the deadbolt with this quiet little click that felt absurdly small in that silence. We just lay there for a minute, barely moving, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no leaves shifting, no second set of knocks. Just that thick, padded quiet again, as if the sound had never happened. Finally, after a couple minutes that felt like an hour, I scooted closer and pinched the bottom edge of the blackout shade. I lifted it just a sliver. Not enough to really look, more like a reluctant peek. Like I could keep plausible deniability if I didn't see anything. Outside was nothing but blackness and the vague outline of the ravine swallowing the light. No silhouette, no face, no person standing there. And here's the part that still makes my brain stall out. In the daytime, we'd noticed there wasn't any real ground right outside that window. No little patio, no deck, no flat area. The container sat near the edge, and beyond the glass it just dropped. So if someone had knocked, they would have had to be standing on that steep slope, in the dark, with nothing to balance on. And the knocks weren't low, like an animal bumping the glass. They were at a height that felt normal, like someone standing upright, reaching out with their knuckles. But it never happened again. No second round, no follow-up, no pacing around outside, just that single set of firm knocks, and then the silence returning, like it had been holding its breath. We left the next morning earlier than we planned. In daylight, it was almost insulting how normal everything looked. Sun on the trees, birds, dry rocks in the ravine. The window just sitting there like a harmless piece of glass. Nothing felt haunted. Nothing felt wrong. And nothing came home with us either. No nightmares, no weird shadows, no lingering feeling. Just this one moment I can't file away neatly. A few deliberate knocks in the dead of night, on a window overlooking a drop-off where nobody should have been able to stand. So, I want to start by saying this clearly. I don't feel threatened. If anything, whatever this is has always felt more like a protector, like something hovering just out of sight, steady and oddly kind. It began when I was a teenager, during this phase I had that I can only describe as intense. I was obsessed with collecting dead things. Roadkill I'd find on back roads, scraps from a butcher, bones I'd discover near the shoreline after storms. Once or twice, even preserved specimens that definitely didn't belong to me. Back then, I didn't have a name for it, but later I found out people call it vulture culture. Looking back, I think that's when I opened a door in my home without meaning to. A woman I met years later, Mara, who was deep into occult practices, told me bluntly, "You invited something in." And I remember laughing like, sure, okay. But I also remember the way her eyes stayed serious. After that, strange things started happening. Not scary exactly, just impossible to ignore. The biggest pattern was the timing. Like reality would bend a little to keep me safe or steer me somewhere. There was a day I urgently needed a certain medication, something personal, something I couldn't exactly announce to my family, and I couldn't find a way to slip out. And then, out of nowhere, I got told I had to go to the pharmacy to pick up something completely unrelated. It was said with that tone adults use when they're not taking no for an answer. It gave me the perfect excuse, and I remember standing in the aisle thinking, okay, that was too convenient. And then there were the synchronicities. Like, I'd get this random pull to open a book I hadn't touched in years, and I'd flip to a page that described something happening in my life so precisely it made my stomach drop, like a warning I didn't know I needed. Or I'd play an old radio recording, something decades old, and a line would land in my ear like it was aimed straight at me, addressing a problem that had only happened earlier that day. Even my thoughts didn't feel private sometimes. I'd think of something wildly specific, like reconstructive surgery after an accident, and the next day I'd find out an acquaintance of mine, Elise, had just gone through that exact thing. Not similar, the thing I pictured. And then there was the physical stuff. Not subtle, not, oh, maybe a breeze kind of stuff. I mean, I watched a pile of couch pillows bounce like they were being shaken from underneath, like someone invisible was trying to be funny. I stood there frozen, whispering, no. No way. Like that would make it stop. The moment that really sealed it for me, though, was the lamp. One evening, I felt that presence more strongly than usual, like the air had weight, like the room had an extra heartbeat, and I just spoke out loud. I said, "If you're here, give me a sign, something undeniable." And this is important. I didn't say it out loud, but in my mind I pictured a lamp shattering, glass everywhere. Dramatic, unmistakable. Hours later that same day, a lamp in the living room that had worked perfectly for years just exploded. Not flickered, not popped a bulb. The glass shattered and sprayed across the room like it had been struck. And somehow, I wasn't hurt. Not a cut, not even a nick. I remember my hands shaking as I stared at the mess, and I whispered, "Okay, I hear you." Eventually, I moved far away. New place, new walls, new air. I thought maybe it would stop, like it was tied to the house or that version of me. But it didn't stop. If anything, it followed me like a quiet streak of good fortune. And I had this terrifying moment on a highway during heavy rain. My car hydroplaned, spun completely around. The world turned into noise and water and headlights. And I should have been hit. There were cars everywhere. But I slid off and landed in the grass like someone guided my steering wheel at the last second. I sat there afterward with my forehead against the wheel, whispering thank you to I didn't even know who. What's even stranger is that it feels like the luck doesn't just cover me anymore. It brushes onto my husband too. My husband's name is Dorian, and it's like doors open for him the same way. He started a business after we moved. New town, new country, no guarantees. And somehow, he took off immediately. Like, immediately. Enough that he can support me through school on his own. And I look at our life sometimes and I don't feel smug or proud. I feel stunned. Like I'm watching a string of impossible outcomes stack up neatly, one after another. And the part that sits in my chest the most is this. I don't know why. I don't feel like I earned it. I don't feel like I did something heroic or spiritual or special. If anything, I've just tried to be grateful. When something good happens, I say thank you. I pray. I try not to take it for granted. I hope whatever has been watching over me stays. Truly. But I also wish, so badly, that I could communicate more clearly. Not just hints and nudges and shattered glass. I want a real conversation. I want to understand what it is, what it wants, why it chose me, and how to say properly, from the deepest part of myself, I see you, and I'm grateful. Hey, can I tell you something that's been sitting in my chest for the last day? Because I honestly can't shake it. So, I'm about 6 weeks pregnant. It wasn't planned. And I'm in that kind of emotional place where everything feels tender and loud at the same time, like I'm walking around with my nerves exposed. Part of me feels this immediate, almost fierce attachment to the pregnancy. And then my partner, he's scared. He keeps saying he's not ready, and I get it, I do. But it still left me feeling split right down the middle. Like no matter what I choose, I'm going to lose something. Last night I hit this point where I just couldn't carry it alone anymore. I felt overwhelmed and kind of desperate for clarity. So I prayed. Not one of those perfectly worded prayers, just a messy, honest one. I didn't even ask for a specific outcome, just guidance. I remember saying something like, "Please, show me my path. Give me something, a sign, a dream, whatever. I just need to feel like I'm not walking blind." I went to bed expecting nothing, and honestly, that's what it felt like I got. No dream, nothing vivid. I woke up with that heavy disappointment, like, okay, so it's just me in my head again. I carried that feeling into the morning, quiet, weighed down, trying not to cry at random moments. And then later, completely out of nowhere, my cousin Marisol called me. I could tell the second she started talking that something was off. Her voice had this shaky edge, like she wasn't sure whether she should even say what she was about to say. She told me she'd had a dream the night before, and it felt important. Like the kind of dream that doesn't evaporate when you wake up. She said, "I know this is going to sound weird, but I feel like you need to hear it." And then she told me what she dreamed. She said there was a baby in our family, a little boy. Tiny, bright-eyed, and smiling like he already knew everyone. She said in the dream the baby hadn't been planned, but somehow the whole family loved him instantly, like he belonged in a way that didn't need explaining. She described him so clearly. Soft, dark hair, round cheeks, this sweet little grin that made everyone laugh. She kept repeating how small he was and how warm the feeling was around him, like the dream itself was wrapped in affection. Here's the thing. She has no idea I'm pregnant. I haven't told anyone. Not my family, not friends, no one. There is absolutely no reason she would connect any of this to me. None. And that's what has me feeling undone. Because the timing is almost too on the nose. I asked for a sign and didn't get one, at least not directly. And then, the same night, someone else dreams something so specific and reaches out the next morning like she's carrying a message she didn't ask for. I'm not saying it's proof of anything. I'm not trying to force meaning onto it like it's some cosmic stamp of approval. But it also didn't feel random. It felt like something brushed up against my life in a way that made me stop and go, wait, what was that? Since then, I've been stuck in this emotional loop, half comforted, half confused. Like my heart wants to believe I was answered, but my brain wants to protect me from grabbing onto something just because I'm scared and I want certainty. I don't know. It's like I asked the universe to speak, and it didn't speak to me directly. It spoke through someone else. And now I'm left holding that call in my hands, turning it over and over, wondering what, if anything, I'm supposed to do with it. So, I don't even know how to tell this without sounding dramatic, but I'm wide awake and my stomach's been in knots, so I'm just going to say it like I'd say it to a friend. A few weeks back, I was scrambling for work. Anything, really. Pet sitting, tutoring, cleaning. One morning, ridiculously early, like 4:40 a.m., my phone rings. No caller ID. And this calm, almost rehearsed voice goes, "Are you available to care for children at a private estate in the countryside? You would begin tomorrow." No interview, no tell me about yourself. Nothing. And then the weirdest part. They mentioned my resume, like they already had it. I remember staring at my phone afterward thinking, how did you even get my information? But the pay was great and, I don't know, I've always loved old houses. I told myself I was being paranoid and said yes. The next day, a driver picked me up in this glossy black town car. Might have been a Lincoln, I'm not even sure, but it had that don't ask questions vibe. The driver barely spoke. At one point, without even looking at me, he said, "You won't get reception out there. Best to keep your phone put away." Which, okay, fine. But the drive felt endless. Trees closing in, thin roads that looked like they hadn't been widened since horse and cart days, and fog hanging low, even though the weather wasn't cold. It wasn't spooky in a movie way, more like the world got quieter the farther we went. Then we turned through these iron gates and the place just appeared. A huge Victorian manor, perfectly maintained. Not creepy abandoned at all. There were fountains in front, trimmed hedges, stone statues, beds of winter flowers, and actual gardeners working like it was a normal Tuesday. It looked expensive in a way I can't even describe, like the kind of wealthy that doesn't need to show off because it already owns everything. And then she came out. Not grandma old, but older, maybe late 50s. Tall. Rigid posture like she had a book balanced on her head her whole life. Hair pulled into a tight bun. Long, plain dress. She introduced herself as Mrs. Harrow, and she didn't exactly smile. She didn't exactly frown either. It was more like her face simply didn't waste energy on expressions. Inside the manor smelled old, but not dirty, like wood polish, beeswax, and faint floral soap. Quiet carpets, heavy curtains, everything spotless, but also like time had been paused and nobody wanted to admit it. Then she led me into this dining room. Long table, high-backed chairs, the whole period drama situation. And the kids were already sitting there like they'd been placed in position. 3 kids, Ivy, Nell, and Rowan. Rowan was the oldest, about 8. The girls were 6 and 3. No TV noise in the background, no toys scattered anywhere, none of that normal kid chaos. The youngest, Nell, latched onto me immediately like I was a lifeboat. Ivy, the middle one, had this bold little spark, like she was testing what she could get away with. Rowan didn't really react. He just watched me. Not shy exactly, more like he was observing. I felt like I'd walked into a house that didn't belong in this century. And here's the thing, nobody explained any rules. I only realized there were rules after I broke one. At dinner, I tried to be friendly, just small talk. I asked, "So what do you guys like to eat? Any favorites?" The instant I spoke, it was like I'd slapped a glass off the table. No one answered, not a single word. The air went thick. And then Mrs. Harrow, at the head of the table, slowly put both palms flat on the wood and bowed her head. So I copied her too, because what else do you do? I expected a prayer or something, but there wasn't one. They just stayed bowed for a few seconds. Then, all at once, they lifted their heads and started eating in perfect sync. No conversation, no laughter, just forks and knives and quiet chewing like it was a rule carved into the walls. Later that night, this butler, Mr. Griggs, led me upstairs to my room, and my suitcases were already there on the bed. I hadn't even carried them in. That should have been a bigger red flag than it was, but my brain kept doing that thing where it tries to normalize everything. Like, oh, they're just efficient. Fancy people are weird. It's fine. The first couple days were mostly okay. I did normal childcare things. Meals, stories, baths, keeping Nell busy because she was glued to me, trying to get Ivy to stop deliberately pushing boundaries, and gently checking in on Rowan, who seemed to live in his own world. The kids didn't play like kids I'm used to. No running around, no noisy toys, no cartoons. More like quiet puzzles, sketching, sitting with books, arranging little wooden blocks in patterns, and then walking away. And the routine. God, the routine. Everything happened at exact times. Meals at the same minute. Lessons. Walks. Bedtime. Even the way the curtains were drawn felt scheduled. Nobody ever explained it, but you learned quickly by watching, because if you were late by even a little, you could feel the whole house noticing. Then last night something happened that finally snapped me out of my "this is just quirky rich people stuff" mindset. I'd put the younger ones to bed, and I was walking back to my room when I heard screaming. Raw, terrified screaming from Ivy's bedroom. I bolted in thinking she'd fallen or had a seizure or someone had broken in. She was in bed, eyes shut tight, thrashing side to side, like she was trying to shake something off of her. Her face was twisted like she was fighting. I grabbed her shoulders and called her name until she jolted awake, gasping and sobbing, clinging to me like she couldn't tell if she was safe yet. This morning, I asked Mrs. Harrow about it, very carefully, because you don't really chat with her. You report things. So I said Ivy had what looked like night terrors. Mrs. Harrow didn't look surprised. She just said, in that quiet voice, "It occurs. It is managed." I asked if she'd seen a doctor. She gave me this look, like I'd suggested something obscene, and said, "We do not invite modern interference into the household." And then Ivy, still pale and sleepy, whispered to me later what she saw. She said she saw tall figures in black cloaks, and that inside the hoods there wasn't a face, just emptiness and little red eyes like beads. I laughed a tiny bit when she said it, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. I told her it was a nightmare. I told myself it was a nightmare. But after that, I started noticing things I swear I hadn't really looked at before. Symbols carved into door frames and banisters. Small, repeated markings that didn't feel decorative once you actually paid attention. Like someone had etched them there on purpose, over and over. Some looked like old club or lodge symbols, the kind you'd see in history books. Except, why would they be in a kid's hallway? Why would they be everywhere? And then, this part is what has me sitting here feeling stupid even saying it out loud. But then I realized the shapes were too uneven, too human. There were people out there, standing spaced across the grass in a wide ring, wearing long, dark, hooded clothing. Not walking, not talking, just standing in stillness like they'd been placed there the way the children were placed at the table. The whole circle perfectly arranged. I stood frozen at the window, trying to convince myself I was misseeing it, that it was gardeners or a staff thing, or some weird midnight tradition that rich families do for fun. But nobody moved, not even a shift of weight, not even a head turn. And I don't know how long I stood there before I stepped back from the glass like it could see me looking. I'm supposed to stay another week. And I keep trying to be reasonable because nothing has actually hurt me. Nobody's threatened me. The house is clean. The kids are sweet in their own strange way. But the longer I'm here, the more it feels like I'm not just babysitting in an old house. It feels like I accidentally walked into something that's been going on for a long time, and they don't want witnesses who weren't invited. So, let me tell you about my cousin. I'm going to change his name. Let's call him Moran. A few years back, Moran got deported from Greece after running into police trouble that revolved around drugs. Nothing neat or simple, just a messy collapse. He'd been smoking heavy for a long time, and it did something to him. Not in the casual, he's a little spacey way. More like, his thoughts started turning against him. Paranoia, mood swings, that hollow-eyed suspicion, like the world is always about to spring a trap. He ended up spending a few weeks in a psychiatric hospital, and after that, the family didn't really know what to do with him. They didn't want him in the city, didn't want him drifting, and they didn't trust him alone where there were temptations. So they sent him back to this old childhood house our family still had, way up in a remote mountain village in Albania. When I say house, don't picture something cozy. Picture a place that feels like it's been holding its breath for decades. No electricity. Water that only worked when it felt like cooperating. Stone walls that stayed cold even in summer, and everything smelled faintly damp, like old blankets and mildew. At night, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like it had weight. Moran was there completely alone, and he barely slept. There was this one episode that still sticks in my mind. Someone told me about it later, and I remember thinking, yeah, okay, he's not okay. He'd gotten so worked up one night that he ripped the main door right off the hinges. Not joking, like tore it down, smashed it into pieces, and burned the wood inside the house just to warm himself up. That's the kind of thing that makes you stop arguing with yourself about whether someone's just stressed. But here's the part that always confused me. Moran was never afraid of the dark. Even in that village, where the roads are basically dirt and the trees crowd in close, he would walk outside at night like it was nothing. No flashlight, no hesitation. He'd go down the road, into the little stretches of forest, just wandering. Like the dark didn't register as danger to him. And around that same time, he told me something strange about the neighbors. Across the road, there was this elderly woman, his neighbor's grandmother. And Moran said that sometimes, after midnight, she'd come outside and walk in slow circles around her own house. Same route, same pace, over and over. No talking, no purpose, no lights. Just circling like she was tied to the ground with an invisible string. I remember laughing it off when he first said it. Like, okay, sure, maybe he imagined it, maybe he was half asleep. But he didn't say it like a rumor. He said it like an observation, like it was just another thing the night did. Then he started talking about the sound. He told me that every night, at the same hour, like it had a schedule, he'd hear this noise coming from the bathroom, specifically from the toilet. And he didn't describe it like plumbing. He said it was like something chewing, wet, slow, rhythmic, like whatever it was had a mouth and it was calmly working through something it had caught. He'd get up, walk over there, and the moment he stepped into the bathroom, silence. Instant. The room would be empty. Just cold tile, cold air, that dead smell old houses have. No rats, no dripping, no nothing. And yet, the next night, same hour, same sound. Night after night. Until one night, this is where his voice changed when he told it. He said he got up again, checked again, found nothing again, and as he turned to go back to his room, something tightened around his neck. Not a hand, not a person, just pressure. Sudden, hard. He told me his feet left the floor. He said his chest burned from trying to pull air in, like his lungs were scraping for breath. And then he saw the television. It was an old TV, the kind with weight to it, sitting in the room. He said it rose, like it was being pulled upright by something unseen, and the cable slid tight around his throat, twisting as it went. And then everything dropped. He hit the ground, and the TV came down too, smashing onto him. He said it struck the back of his head, and after that the memory got scattered, like broken glass. The next morning, another cousin, Alira, went to check on him because nobody had heard anything from him. She found him on the floor. The TV shattered. Blood, just a thin line at the back of his head. He was alive, but he looked emptied out, like someone had scooped something essential out of him and left the body behind. And when Alira asked what happened, Moran didn't cry or shout or act dramatic. He just said, calm as anything, I think I made a djinn angry. For years, I told myself it was psychosis, withdrawal, a freak accident mixed with paranoia. And honestly, that explanation is still there, hovering, because it makes sense, and it's safer. But then I started learning more about Islam, about the way jinn are believed to exist alongside us, especially in filthy, abandoned, neglected places, about how fear and isolation can draw things in, and how people who are weakened by addiction, by instability, by despair, are believed to be more vulnerable. And it didn't make me feel better. It didn't give the story a neat, spiritual answer. It just made it uncomfortably possible. Like maybe the house really was empty of people, but not empty of something. Okay, so this is going to sound strange, but I'm just going to tell you exactly how it's been happening. Sometimes at night, I hear breathing in my room. Not all the time, just often enough that I know it's a thing I've experienced more than a handful of times. And it's always at night. Like the kind of night where the whole house feels extra quiet, and every little sound seems bigger than it should. I live with two other people. One of them, Jade, sleeps in the room right next to mine. The other, Callum, is on the other side of the house, basically as far away as you can get. And yeah, the walls are a little thin, but not that thin. Not I can hear someone breathing like they're right beside my pillow thin. We also have 3 pets, a dog, a cat, and a hamster. The dog usually sleeps downstairs, or sometimes in the far room with Callum. The hamster, Pepper, is in my room, but her cage is across the room and... Come on, I'm not hearing a hamster breathe. And the cat, Miso? Here's the part that messes with me. When I hear the breathing, it's usually when Miso is not in my room. Like tonight, for example, I went out to get a drink, and she was sprawled in the living room. So when I came back and heard it again, I was like, it literally can't be her. And the breathing doesn't just come from one spot either. That's what makes it so unsettling. It comes from 3 places. One is right beside me, like someone is lying there next to my bed. Another is under my bed, like, imagine someone sleeping where they'd be if they were next to me, except they're underneath. And the third is above me. When it's above me, it's the worst. Because it sounds like somebody is standing next to the bed, leaning over, watching me. And I don't even sleep against the wall. I'm kind of positioned so there's space around me. So when I hear it coming from above, my brain starts filling in the blank with this horrible image of someone being right there. Like, right over me. Sometimes it even sounds like they're on all fours, hovering over the bed, breathing down. I know how dramatic that sounds, I know. But that's genuinely what it feels like in the moment. It's not constant breathing either. It comes and goes. Sometimes it's quiet for a while, and then, there it is again, closer, like it's trying to be careful. And the breathing itself is usually one of two types. The first type is like someone asleep. You know how sleeping breathing isn't always perfectly even? There's the occasional deeper breath, that little huff, that heavier exhale. That's what it sounds like. And honestly, I've heard pets breathe like that before. But like I said, when this happens, the pets aren't in the right place for it to make sense. The second type is the one that freaks me out the most. It's like someone is trying to breathe quietly, like they're holding their breath on purpose. And then they have to take a quick, deeper breath, like they're hoping I won't notice. Like they're trying to be subtle and failing. And sometimes, I don't just hear it, I feel it. Not always at the same time, which is part of why I'm frustrated, because I can't tell what connects to what. But there are moments where I'll feel that soft push of air, like when someone next to you takes a deeper breath and you feel it shift on your skin. That kind of thing. And when that happens, I also get this weird, heavy sense that someone is too close. Like my body knows before my brain catches up. And I'll just lie there thinking, do I turn my head? Do I look? Because it's one of those moments where you're terrified of confirming what you think you're sensing. I've tried to be logical about it. Like, okay, there's a bridge not super far away, and cars go over it all day and night. Not non-stop, but enough that there's background sound sometimes. And there's definitely some kind of draft in the house. The bathroom door moves on its own a lot. Jade swears it's just air pressure or whatever, even though it moves sometimes when no windows are open, which is suspicious, honestly. But my room is on the second floor, so it's not like something outside the window is right there breathing. And the attic isn't right above me in a way that makes sense either. Plus, the ceiling's high enough that if something were up there, I don't think it would sound like it's hovering directly over my bed. So, I don't know. Sometimes, just in case, I'll talk out loud into the room. Not like a dramatic movie thing, more like, quietly, hey, if something is here, please respect my space. Don't hurt me. I'm not trying to hurt you. That kind of thing. Because if there is something, I don't want to start a war with it, you know? And I've even had the thought like, maybe something was on this land before the house was built. It's a new build, so nobody lived here before us. But the land itself had a history long before we showed up. And I should probably say this too. I'm not exactly stable. I deal with anxiety and depression, and I have CPTSD, and I'm autistic, and I have some physical stuff going on too, like weird heart flutters and neurological symptoms. It's a lot. So I have wondered, is my brain just messing with me? But it doesn't feel like a hallucination. It feels external, like something I'm noticing, not something I'm inventing. Tonight it's 4:46 a.m. as I'm thinking about this. I woke up around 3:30, and I think that's when it started again. And I'm not even fully panicking. I'm more unsettled and curious. I'm a why person. I just want an explanation that makes sense. Honestly, part of me feels embarrassed even saying it out loud, because I can already imagine how it sounds. But it keeps happening, and it's hard to ignore when it feels like someone is breathing right next to you, or under you, or above you. So yeah, that's it. That's what's been going on. And if you're listening to this and thinking, please tell me there's a normal explanation, trust me, I want that too. Okay, so I need to tell you what's been going on, because it sounds unreal even as I say it out loud. A couple weekends ago, I went to this little thrift pop-up, one of those crowded, cozy ones with folding tables and racks stuffed with vintage stuff. I wasn't even planning to buy much, but I found this bundle of clothes that felt like a score. A couple tops, a jacket, this heavy knit sweater that was honestly perfect. I brought everything home in a tote bag, tossed it on a chair in my room, and didn't think twice. But ever since those clothes came into the house, things have felt off. Not in a ha-ha spooky story way, in a real stomach-tightening, something is wrong way. So, first incident. My mom, her name is Nadine, she's always been spiritual. Like, not performative about it. She's just tuned in. She notices things. She dreams things. She's the kind of person who'll pause in the middle of a sentence and go, "Nope, something's not right." And she's usually correct. When I told her where the clothes came from, she was like, "All right, before you wear anything, we're cleansing them." She wanted to wash them with salt, just to strip off any bad energy that might have been clinging to them. We load up the washer, start the cycle, and when it's time to dry them, she plugs the dryer back in. And I swear to you, the second she did, there was this sharp pop. Then this flash, like a tiny lightning strike right at the outlet. The plug actually sparked. The plastic looked like it started to melt, and then the whole house went dark. Like every light, everything. We ran around flipping switches, checking the breaker, trying to get anything back on. We even had my uncle come over the next day, because he's handy and he fixes everything. Nothing. The outlet was dead. The dryer was dead. And it wasn't like, oh, this is an old appliance. It had been working fine literally the day before. That's when my mom got quiet. Like, too quiet. And she just said, "We're not washing those yet." Second incident. There's this hallway in our house that leads to the bedrooms. It's not even creepy looking. It's just a hallway. Family photos, a little runner rug, normal. But after that dryer thing, the hallway started acting weird. The first time I saw it happen, my mom was talking to me from the kitchen. I was walking toward the dining table, and from the corner of my eye, I watched the hallway light click off. Not flicker, not dim, just off. I stopped and I called out, "Mom, the hallway light just shut off." And she goes, "No, it didn't." So she comes around the corner to look, and the light is on again. Like nothing happened. I'm standing there feeling crazy, and she's looking at me like I'm being dramatic. Except, later that same week, she saw it too. She was walking down the hall, and it just snapped off while she was right under it. And now it happens a lot. Sometimes it'll go off and then come back on by itself. Sometimes it stays off until one of us turns it back on. And it's always that hallway. Third incident. One night I ate late, just something small, and I rinsed out my bowl, put my fork in it, and left it in the sink. Normal. I went straight to my room to sleep. My door was shut, I'm under the blanket, half asleep. My mom is still up in the living room. She's turning off the TV, straightening up, doing her last little routine before bed. And then she hears it. This clink, metal on ceramic, like a fork dropping into a bowl. She didn't yell. She didn't panic. She stood in that kitchen and said out loud, firm and calm, "Whoever is in this house is not welcome here." And you know how sometimes the air changes after someone says something with real authority? Like it gets heavy, almost pressurized? That's what it felt like. And then, the worst one happened. Before that night, I'd already been feeling watched, especially when the lights were off. Like, You know when you're in a dark room and your brain starts playing tricks? This wasn't that. This was like my body knew. Like I'd catch myself holding my breath for no reason. Like my shoulders stayed tense even when I was alone. Then one night, I fell asleep and woke up around 3:30 something. I checked my phone later and it was 3:38 to use the bathroom. I went, came back, locked my door like I always do, and got into bed. And I'm just starting to drift off when I hear it. My doorknob. Not turning gently, not a little jiggle like someone grabbed the wrong door. Someone was trying to get in, hard. Like they were pushing and pulling, testing the lock with force. My towel, hanging on a hook by the door, fell to the floor from the vibration. I sat up so fast my heart felt like it slammed into my throat. I stared at the door, frozen, waiting for the next sound. And then it stopped. Complete silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. I grabbed my phone and called my mom right away. I'm whispering like I'm afraid someone will hear me, and I'm like, "Mom, did you just try to come in my room?" And she goes, groggy and confused, "No, I'm in bed. Why?" And I tell her, someone was trying to get in, like really trying. She didn't argue. She didn't tell me I was imagining it. She just said, "Open the door and come to my room. Now." So I did. I didn't even turn my back to my door. I just unlocked it and slipped out like I was escaping something. We stood together in the hallway, and I swear, even there, the air felt wrong, like the house was holding its breath. We walked toward my room, and my curtains that shouldn't move because the window was shut, were shifting. Like something had brushed past them. Like there was a draft where there shouldn't have been one. At that point, I slept in her room. Lights on, door closed. I didn't care if I looked like a little kid. And here's where it gets complicated. Because I'm Haitian. And spiritual protection isn't some random trend in my family. It's real, it's cultural, it's ancestral. My mom practices voodoo, and she's taught me how to pray properly, how to be respectful, how to ask for protection without being reckless. The night before everything got really intense, I had prayed to Azili Danto. She's been a protector in our family for a long time. I lit incense. I spoke from my heart. I asked for strength and shielding. I used Florida water on my chest and my wrists the way my mom taught me. So now my brain is spinning because I'm thinking, did I do something wrong? Did I open something I didn't mean to? Or did those clothes already have something attached and all I did was make myself more aware of it? I have cleansing things, Florida water, blessing water, a remover I got from a botanica. And my mom is already talking about bringing in a priest to bless the house because she does not play around when it comes to the safety of the home. But mostly, I just want my house to feel like my house again. I want to know the right way to get rid of those clothes without making it worse, without letting anything cling on or find a new corner to hide in. I want to feel safe walking down my own hallway. I want to lock my door and actually believe it means something. And I know how this sounds. I do. But I also know what I've seen. And I know what my mom has heard. And I know the difference between being scared in the dark and feeling like the dark is paying attention back. So, before I start, this isn't a horror story. Not really. It's more like one of those moments that still sits in the back of your head years later because it never fully explained itself. I practice witchcraft, not Wicca, just my own path, and I've been at it for about 4 years now, which, yeah, isn't forever, but I take it seriously. I study a lot. I've got someone more experienced who guides me when I need it, and I try to learn across different traditions without swallowing any of them whole. I'm building a worldview, not collecting aesthetics. Anyway, a couple friends in my circle work with demons, and I don't mean that in the cheesy movie way. I mean entities they treat as real, present, and, frankly, complicated. I'd always kept a polite distance from that whole lane. Curiosity, sure, but also a big internal no thanks. At the time this happened, I was not okay. My mom's health was sliding downhill fast, and the money part was terrifying. Every phone call felt like it might be the phone call. Every bill felt like a countdown. I was raw, exhausted, and honestly kind of floating through my days with my ribs exposed. That matters because, if you believe in leverage, grief and panic make you easy to grab. One night I was with a few of those friends, just a cozy, low-key hang. Candles, tea, the usual witchy friend group vibe where half the conversation is jokes and the other half is earnest spiritual theory. We decided to do a simple tarot pull. Nothing dramatic, nothing demon-related, just cards. And then, out of nowhere, I got this headache. Not a normal headache either. It was sharp and immediate, like someone had pressed their thumb into the center of my forehead from the inside. I remember blinking a few times like maybe I'd stood up too fast, but I hadn't. I hadn't drank anything weird. No incense smoke in my eyes. Just pain. And then the presence hit. You know when someone walks into a room behind you and you can feel it without seeing them? Multiply that by 100. It wasn't a sound or a smell. It was like pressure, like the air had weight. And the worst part was the sensation that something was leaning toward my thoughts, not reading them like a book, but testing the lock on the door. I snapped up and I was like, "Okay, what are you doing?" And my friend, let's call him Eli, looked at me with this calm, slightly distracted expression he always got when he was in it. Eli was the kind of guy who could be sweet and spacey at the same time, like his mind lived 3 inches to the left of his body. And he goes, very casually, "They're here." I stared at him. "Who is they?" And he says, "The beings I work with. One of them is in the room." He didn't say it like a threat. He didn't say it like a party trick. He said it like, "Yeah, the cat came in." And that almost made it worse. Because the presence didn't feel cartoonishly evil. It wasn't claws and smoke and screaming. It felt composed, watchful, interested, like something intelligent was standing just behind the curtain, smiling without moving its mouth. Eli assured me it wasn't malicious, at least not in the obvious way. And I remember thinking, very clearly, that's what makes it dangerous. Anything truly predatory doesn't always show teeth first. Time passed, minutes, maybe longer. My sense of it gets fuzzy. The tarot spread was just sitting there like a paused sentence. And then Eli told me one of them wanted to speak with me. I didn't agree, exactly. I didn't sign anything. But I was there, and I was already feeling that pressure behind my eyes, and part of me wanted answers because part of me wanted relief. So Eli started mediating, like a translator or a bridge. The message came through in that way these things often do. Half words, half impressions. And it offered me something. Not like money falling from the sky. Not like, poof, she's healed. It was more like the feeling of a solution being placed on the table. Like a velvet box being opened. Like someone saying, "You can stop being afraid. You can stop scrambling. This can be handled." It was the spiritual equivalent of a monkey's paw, and I knew it. I knew it in my bones. But the offer came with this eerie sweetness. It didn't demand anything. It didn't bargain. It didn't say, "in exchange." It just kind of presented the possibility. And then it did something that made my stomach drop. It made me feel seen. Not in the comforting way, in the way where you realize something is looking at you from the inside out, like it's memorizing your soft spots. The message was basically, your worries about your mom can be solved, and you're different. You're special. Which, first of all, no, I don't buy that. Special is one of those words that sounds flattering and functions like a hook. Second of all, it made my skin crawl because it felt like it was saying the exact thing that would be hardest to ignore at my lowest point. I sat there, gripping the edge of my chair, and I remember thinking, if I take this, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Even if it worked, even if it helped, because whatever it touched to do, it would stay touched. So I refused, out loud, firmly, no loopholes. And immediately, it was like the pressure backed off, not fully gone, but like a hand easing away from a door it had been pushing on. The headache started to dull. The air felt lighter. I could breathe again. Later that night, when I was home and the adrenaline wore off, I did what I always do when I'm rattled. I checked in spiritually with the deity I consider my guardian. And let me tell you, I got scolded. Not cruelly, but like a parent who's trying not to yell because they're scared. Like, don't you ever let desperation make decisions for you. And I laughed, because even in the middle of being shaken, the idea of getting a divine lecture for almost being tempted was so painfully on brand for my life. But under the humor, I felt it. Relief. And a little shame. And a deep gratitude that I'd said no. Still, it lingers. Because the question that haunts me isn't, what would have happened if I accepted? It's this. Why offer it without asking for anything? Why say no return when everything in my experience says there's always a return? What did it think it was doing? What did it think it saw in me? And maybe the most unsettling part is that some piece of me suspects the price wasn't going to be a direct request. It was going to be something subtler, something that would unfold later. A slow claim, a convenient coincidence, a shift in who I was, a bend in my path. So, yeah, moral of the story? I don't know. It was weird. It was intelligent. It was tempting in the way a trap is tempting, because it's designed around your exact hunger. And my honest advice is this. Don't go looking into that kind of work unless you're absolutely sure you have nothing they can use to steer you. And I don't mean you're brave. I mean you're genuinely not dangling anything precious over the edge. Because some beings don't need to threaten you. They just need to offer you exactly what you're already losing sleep over. Before I jump in, I just want to say, this isn't really my usual corner of the internet. I'm not someone who hangs out on forums or anything. I'm only here because I'm genuinely rattled, and I don't know where else to put this. So if I explain it weird, or not in the right way, that's why. So, back in early November of 2025, my grandpa, his name was Ray, got hit with a diagnosis that felt unreal. Not just one thing, multiple cancers, all advanced, plus a bunch of other serious complications like seizures and blood clotting issues. It all moved so fast that my family basically went into survival mode overnight. We live in Maryland, and he was across the river in Delaware, so we were constantly driving back and forth. Weekdays when we could. Weekends, always. Bags half-packed all the time. That kind of blur where you're exhausted, but adrenaline keeps you moving because you love someone and you're trying to hold things together. Ray passed away in mid-December. And ever since then, I haven't felt alone. Like, not once. Even when I'm technically by myself, there's this steady, unmistakable sense that someone is there. It's hard to explain without sounding dramatic, but it's like the air has weight to it, like there's an extra presence in the room that isn't mine. That feeling gets way stronger when we go to his place. We still go there a lot because there's a messy situation with his roommate, and we can't just leave the house empty. So we're down there constantly, sometimes a couple nights, sometimes longer, basically whenever we can manage it. And the weird thing is, the house doesn't just make me sad, it makes me paranoid. It's like clockwork. As soon as it gets later in the evening, my brain flips into this hyper-alert mode. Every creak becomes a footstep. Every little shift in the house makes my heart start pounding. I'll be lying in bed trying to sleep, and I can't, because I feel like if I close my eyes, I'm going to miss something. Like something is going to happen in the second I stop paying attention. I keep thinking, what am I even afraid of? Because it's not like I'm imagining some clear threat. It's more like the house feels occupied. Not physically, not in a normal way, just present. Like there's an awareness in the space that makes me tense up. At first, my brain went straight to the idea that it's something paranormal. Like maybe Ray is still around, watching over us, checking in, lingering, whatever you want to call it. And I'll be honest, I've always been the kind of person who's a little more open to that stuff. I've always felt like there's more going on around us than we can see, and I've had moments in my life where I've trusted that gut feeling. So part of me wants to believe it's him. But then there's the other part of me, the part that's trying really hard to be rational, that keeps saying, okay, or you're grieving, you're exhausted, you're stressed. Your brain is doing that thing where it turns feelings into patterns. Because grief does weird things to you. And the constant traveling, the illness, the decline, it was traumatic in that slow, grinding way where you don't realize how bad it is until after. It's like my body is still stuck in the something terrible is about to happen phase, and it doesn't know how to switch off. And there's one more layer to it that makes me even more unsure of myself. But I've read that bipolar issues can come with paranoia sometimes, or that your brain can turn the volume up on fear and suspicion, especially under stress. And if that's true, then maybe this feeling I'm having isn't supernatural at all. Maybe it's my mind in overdrive, trying to make sense of grief and pressure and unfamiliar quiet. So I'm stuck between two explanations, and both of them scare me in different ways. Because if it's something paranormal, I don't know what that means, or what I'm supposed to do about it. And if it's me, if it's my mental health spiraling, then that's its own kind of terrifying, because it means I can't fully trust what I'm feeling. All I know is this. Ever since Ray died, the world hasn't felt empty the way it should. Especially in that house. Especially at night. And I'm not posting this for attention or drama. I'm posting it because I want someone, anyone, to tell me I'm not losing it. Or if I am, to tell me what steps to take next. Because I don't want to be scared every time I walk into the place where he lived. I don't want his home to feel like a trap. I just want it to feel like him. Warm, familiar, safe. But right now it doesn't. Right now, it feels like I'm being watched. Welcome to the Paranormal M channel. I'm so happy you're here, and I can't wait to share paranormal experiences with you from all around the world. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Thank you so much for sending in all of your personal paranormal stories. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to watch and comment on our newest videos. I truly love being here and sharing these experiences with you. Thanks again. Now let's dive into today's paranormal stories. So let me start by saying this. I'm usually the person rolling my eyes at paranormal stories. I'm not some hardcore non-believer or anything. I'm just cautious. People's memories get weird over time, especially when something scares you or doesn't make sense. And this happened a long time ago, so yeah, I can't pretend I have a perfect recording of it. But I can tell you one thing with total honesty. I believe it happened. When I was little, like somewhere around 7 or 8, my parents used to take me almost every summer to visit family. My aunt and uncle lived outside San Antonio in this 2-story house that felt super new and clean and modern at the time. I remember it was before everything in their family changed, before the tension, before the split. So it places it in my head pretty clearly. My cousin, let's call him Mateo, was my built-in best friend whenever I visited. We spent whole afternoons doing kid stuff that felt important for absolutely no reason. One day we were in the backyard messing around with this sad, half-flat kickball, and later we were inside playing some cheesy little plug-in video game, one of those weird ones with a cartoon-themed controller that never worked right. Ours had this bright yellow joystick, and I remember it squeaked when you pulled it too hard. Eventually we got bored and did what kids always do in big houses: hide and seek. Mateo volunteered to count first, and we were on the first floor when he started. And I remember thinking I was an actual genius, because instead of hiding somewhere obvious, behind a curtain, under a table, I decided I'd sneak upstairs. The stairs were carpeted, and I went up quietly, hands and feet, like some little ninja. I wasn't worried about making noise at all. At the top of the stairs, there was this closet with a folding accordion-style door. Not a real walk-in closet, more like a narrow hallway closet. I thought, perfect. Even though, looking back, it was an awful hiding place. It was basically the first spot anyone would check. But I was 7. My standards were low. I grabbed the handle and tried to pull it open, and it didn't move right away. There was resistance, like something soft but heavy was jammed behind it. My uncle was really into sports, and he had gear everywhere, so I assumed it was a bag shoved in there wrong. I tugged harder. The door finally gave, and something came out. Not slid out, not crawled out. It jumped. I can still see it in my head like it's happening right now. This big, pitch-black, fuzzy spider-like thing sprang out onto the carpet. It didn't move like a normal animal. It wasn't skittering. It was bouncing, like its main way of getting around was these short, quick hops. And I know this is where it sounds ridiculous, but I'm just telling you what I remember. It looked like a tarantula, except wrong. Like a tarantula-shaped shadow. No markings, no visible eyes, no brown or gray or anything. Just this deep, void black fuzz that made it hard to focus on, like my brain didn't know how to process it. Size-wise? In my memory, it was huge, about the size of one of those big playground balls, maybe a little bigger. As a little kid, that might as well have been the size of my entire torso. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even think. I just ran. I got back downstairs and found Mateo, and when he asked what I was doing, I kind of redirected the whole day. Like, hey, hide and seek is dumb. Let's do something else. And somehow I convinced him. I don't know how, but I did. Here's the part that always sticks with me. I never told him. Not then, not later, not anyone. Because even at that age, I understood one simple rule. Spiders that big don't exist. Not in a normal house. Not in Texas. Not anywhere. And if I said it out loud, I felt like I'd get laughed at, or worse. I'd get told I imagined it, and then I'd be alone with that memory anyway. That night we ate dinner like normal. We watched TV. Everything was completely ordinary. And then it was bedtime. Mateo's room was upstairs, the same upstairs. And I remember hanging back and letting him go first, pretending I wasn't scared. like I was just being a bratty little cousin, letting him lead the way. But nothing happened. No shadow spider, no movement, no sign of it anywhere. We even passed the top of the stairs and the closet and nothing. Like it never existed. We went to sleep. I didn't get sick. I didn't have some dramatic haunting after that. No one in the family ever mentioned anything strange in the house, before or after. It was just one moment, one impossible thing, then normal life again. And I get it. Compared to most paranormal stories, that's pretty anticlimactic. No ghost voice whispering my name, no doors slamming, no glowing eyes in the dark. Just a closet door that stuck, and a jumping black thing that shouldn't have been real. But here's why it still bothers me. I don't remember most days from that age. I don't remember most summers, most meals, most random afternoons. But I remember that. I remember it so clearly, it's like I can feel the carpet under my hands and hear my own feet pounding down those stairs. So I don't know what it was. I'm not even asking you to believe me. I'm just finally saying it out loud because I've carried it quietly for years. And honestly, I'm curious what you think it was, because I still don't have an explanation that satisfies me. So this happened about 10 years ago, right around early spring. A longtime family friend, his name was Ricky, died in a drunk driving crash. He wasn't even the one driving. And the thing I remember most vividly about him, weirdly, is how consistent he was. Always those loose, worn work boots, usually Timberlands, and a baseball cap like it was practically part of him. A couple days after his celebration of life, I'm at my family's house. It's evening, kind of quiet, and I'm down in the basement with 3 older relatives, my Aunt Marla, my Uncle Vito, and my cousin Denise. We're doing laundry, passing a smoke around, just decompressing. We're the only ones home. Like, for sure the only ones home. And the basement is laid out in this very simple way. Basically one big square room. The stairs come down and land in the middle. There's this old hanging shade or curtain off to the right side of the staircase, and a single ceiling light over on the left. The washer and dryer are on the right side when you come down. So from where we're sitting, anyone walking down the stairs would be backlit and kind of silhouetted behind that draped shade. The left side is all furnace and storage. Holiday bins, boxes, the whole thing. We start talking about Ricky, the ceremony, and I mention this strange, emotional moment I had right at the end of it. Like that heavy, almost electric feeling you get when grief suddenly turns quiet. Like something in the room shifts. My aunt and I are going back and forth about it, and then we hear the basement door open, clear as day. Then we hear footsteps, not light ones, heavy steps, like someone wearing boots that don't bend much. And we all look toward the stairs, and I swear to you, we see a silhouette coming down. Baseball cap shape, shoulders, and those loose, chunky work boots. The way the feet landed, solid, slow. The figure reaches the bottom, and from the silhouette it looks like they turn left, into the storage side of the basement. My aunt goes, "Who is that?" My uncle, trying to sound casual but already tense, calls out, "Hey, what are you doing over there? If you're looking for the weed, it's over here." No answer. So I stand up. My stomach is already doing that slow drop thing, but I'm telling myself, okay, maybe someone came home. Maybe I missed a car door. Maybe I'm just keyed up from the funeral. I walk to the left side, past the furnace, past the stacked bins. Behind the bigger boxes, there is nobody. Nothing. No movement. No shadows. No place for someone to duck out. just the hum of the furnace and the dry, dusty smell of storage. I come back over and I'm like, there's no one down here. And the way my aunt's face changes, like all the color leaves it, she goes, "What do you mean there's no one? Where did they go?" And I just say it again because I don't know what else to say. There's literally nobody else down here but us. And for a second, nobody talks. It's like we're all waiting for someone to laugh and break it. But no one laughs. My uncle just mutters something like, "Yeah, I'm heading out." Like he suddenly remembered an errand that cannot wait another second. We all go upstairs. We check the kitchen, the living room, the hallway. No one. Doors locked. House quiet. Still only us. And what makes it worse is that we didn't really talk about it afterward. Not in a real way. It was like we all silently agreed, don't poke it. Years go by, and I watched him change right in front of me. Like, instant. His face drained, his posture stiffened. He went from relaxed to locked in, like a switch flipped. And he just said, low and firm, "I don't want to talk about that." That was it. No joking, no shrugging it off, nothing. And honestly, that reaction still chills me more than the silhouette did, because I've seen this man stare down real-life stuff without blinking. But that, whatever we saw, he wanted it sealed away. I get goosebumps every time I tell this story. Not because I'm trying to convince anyone of ghosts or anything like that, but because it felt so physical, so ordinary in the moment. Door opens, boots on steps, someone walks down. Except they didn't. 4 people heard it. 4 people saw the same outline, and then the person was just gone. I've had weird feelings before, little coincidences, electronics acting up when I was younger, things you can shrug off. But that night in the basement, that's the one I can't file away. Because it wasn't just my memory, it was shared. And there's still no logical explanation that sits right in my chest. Just the sound of boots on stairs, and the feeling that someone came down, turned left, and vanished. So, my house is old. Like, old by Australian standards. Easily a century, maybe more. I've lived here my whole life, and about 9 years ago, my family did this big renovation where we added bedrooms and redid a bunch of the place. Most of my family ended up on the new side of the house. Fresh rooms, newer walls. Everything feels brighter over there. And then there's me. My room is basically the odd one out. It's on the older side, and I'm the only person with a bedroom there. It didn't even used to be a bedroom. Apparently, it was a sitting room once, maybe a dining room at some point. It's got that vibe where you can almost feel it's been a lot of different things. And ever since I was little, I've had this intense fear of ghosts and paranormal stuff. Like, I know a lot of kids get spooked, that's normal. But mine got bigger than that. It got to the point where I just stopped sleeping in my room completely. For years. I had this little mattress set up in my younger brother Lockie's room, and that's where I'd sleep. My room became this daytime-only place. I'd go in there when the sun was up, grab things, hang out for a bit, then leave before night felt too quiet. It sounds dramatic, but it was genuinely bad enough that I ended up in therapy for it. I'm okay now, like genuinely okay. I've been sleeping in my room again for about 5 years without an issue. But still, I've always had this thing about the house at night. Even when my fear got better, I never liked being alone in it after dark. I don't know if that means I'm just sensitive because of how scared I was as a kid, or if I picked up on something back then and my brain just translated it as ghosts. And lately, I've been wondering if there actually is something a bit off. Not in a horror movie way, just in this subtle, hard-to-explain way. mostly around my room. What really tipped it for me was a dream I had a few nights ago. It started out completely normal, one of those dreams where you can't even remember how it began. Just typical dream nonsense. But then the vibe shifted. Like, you know when a dream suddenly becomes sharper, more realistic, almost like you're there? That happened. I was walking up my street, and I saw this girl standing near my neighbor's fence. I'd never seen her before in my life, but in the dream I stopped, like my body recognized her before my brain did. She looked First Nations, Aboriginal, and she was wearing these older-style clothes, like a simple dress you'd see in an old photo. Not costumey, just like she belonged to a different time. She said something to me. I can't remember it now, which drives me nuts because when I first woke up, I swear I knew exactly what she said. But it was something that made me realize I was dreaming, like she pointed it out or reminded me. And the second she said it, I woke up instantly. And the weirdest part was the thought that came with me when I woke up. It wasn't like my normal thoughts. It was just there, fully formed, like someone placed it in my head. I'm safe here. I'm with friends. Not exactly those words, but that meaning, this calm certainty. Like I'd been told, not like I'd decided. And then, right after, my normal brain kicked in and I was like, hang on, what? Why would I think that? Even half asleep, I knew it didn't feel like it came from me. And ever since that night, I've been replaying everything that's ever felt strange about my room. Like I remembered this one stretch of nights earlier this year, maybe a week, where I was consistently scared of one specific corner of my room. Same corner every time. I'd look at it and feel this instant nope, like there was something there watching from that spot. And it wasn't a general fear. It was really specific, like my body had picked a target. And then, after a few nights, it just stopped. Like whatever it was, if it was anything, moved on. And I went back to normal, like I'd imagined the whole thing. And there's also the bathroom right next to my room, on that same older side. It has weird vibes too. I know bathrooms can feel kind of cold and echoey anyway, and maybe I'm just reading into it, but it always feels slightly off in there. Like the air is heavier, or like you don't want to linger. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't know if I'm just pulling old fears back out of storage, or if I'm finally noticing things I've tried not to notice for years. But that dream, it didn't feel like a random dream. It felt like something brushed up against my life and left a little message behind. And the most unsettling part is that the message wasn't, be afraid. It was, you're not alone. So, this is hard to explain without sounding like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I'm going to tell you exactly how it's been for me, and you can take it however you want. As far back as I can remember, I've had this thing, this presence, tagging along behind me. When I was really little, like preschool age, I used to draw pictures of my house and my family, and in a lot of those drawings there was this tall, man-shaped shadow off to the side. Not my shadow, not connected to anyone, just standing there. Sometimes I'd draw him outside the window, sometimes in the hallway, always a little apart, like he didn't belong with us, but also like he was with me. My grandma, Nana Ruth, used to laugh it off. She'd say, "Honey, you're just scared of your own shadow." And I'd nod because, honestly, what else do you say when you're 5? But I wasn't scared then. Back then, it almost felt like a strange kind of company, like an imaginary friend, except I never made him up. Then I got older, 6, maybe 7, and that's when it stopped feeling harmless. My dad, Marcus, and I had this routine. Every night, around 9-ish, we'd go to bed. I was still sleeping in his room at that age, like plenty of kids do, and he'd tuck me in, then go take his shower. I'd just lie there, waiting, staring at the ceiling, listening to the water run. And while I waited, he would show up. This shadow, this man-shaped shadow, would pace beside the bed, back and forth, back and forth. Not fast, not slow, like he had all the time in the world. I could see him clearly, not as a person, not with features, just the outline, the weight of him, the way the darkness looked wrong compared to the rest of the room. And here's the part that made it feel like a pattern. The second my dad turned off the shower and stepped out, the shadow would vanish. Like it couldn't, or wouldn't, stay when my dad was there. That went on for months, almost a year, I think. Night after night, the pacing. Me lying there pretending I wasn't terrified, because somehow I had this child logic that if I didn't react, it couldn't touch me. But eventually, something shifted. I don't know how else to describe it except the air around it changed. The room would feel heavier, meaner. Like whatever it wasn't just watching anymore. It was getting impatient. I started doing this little thing to cope. If it paced on the right side of the bed, I'd roll to face the left. If it moved to the left, I'd turn back to the right. Like if I couldn't see it, it couldn't decide I was real. I know that sounds childish, but I was a child. It was survival by instinct. And then one night, I turned to face the right, like I'd done 100 times, and I felt the mattress dip behind me. Not a little, not like settling, like something with weight had climbed onto the bed. My whole body went rigid. I remember squeezing every muscle, like if I stayed perfectly still, I wouldn't roll back toward it. I was so scared my teeth hurt from clenching. And then, out of nowhere, I felt the sharpest pain I've ever felt in my life, dead center in my back. Like something stabbed me without a blade. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Not even a gasp. It was like my lungs forgot what they were for. I remember thinking, this is it. This is where I die, and nobody will understand what happened. And I stayed like that, locked in my own body, until the bathroom door opened, my dad walked out, and suddenly I could breathe again. The weight was gone. The air lifted. The shadow disappeared like it had never been there. Years went by. Middle school, high school. I didn't see it, but I still had that sensation sometimes. Like I wasn't fully alone in a room, even when I was. Like something was behind the curtain of ordinary life. Then I was 17, senior year, and it came back in a way that still makes my stomach turn when I remember it. I had come home late from rehearsal. Our school play ran long, and it was around 10 at night. My family was out. The house was quiet in that way that feels too empty, like even the walls are listening. I was exhausted, so I went straight to bed. I fell asleep fast, but I had this dream that an earthquake was happening, the whole world shaking, stuff rattling, that panicky feeling like you can't get your footing. And in the dream, I heard my mom, Elaine, zen clear as day, telling me, "Wake up, answer the phone." And then I woke up. My phone really was buzzing on the nightstand, and my bed was shaking, violently, like someone had grabbed the frame and was trying to rattle me awake from the outside. I sat up, and above me, right above me, was this swirling mass of darkness, like a vortex made of shadow. Not smoke exactly, not mist, something thicker, something that moved like it was alive, writhing and curling in on itself. There was a neon sign across the room, this silly pink, lucky cowgirl sign I'd gotten at a flea market, and I could see it through the shadow, but the darkness kept swallowing the color and spitting it back. Pink, dark pink, pink, dark pink, like the shadow was breathing over it. In the center of the vortex, there was something like a face, but featureless. No eyes, no mouth, just the sense of where a face should be, and it made my skin crawl because it felt like it was focused on me, fixed on me. The man shape from childhood was gone. This looked wrong, bigger, more moss-substantial, like it was wearing horns made of shadow or growing them right in front of me. I remember thinking, no, This can't be real. I'm half asleep. I'm imagining it. I tried to blink it away. It didn't go anywhere. The phone kept buzzing. My hands were shaking so badly it took effort to grab it. And the second I answered, literally the second I pressed accept, the bed stopped shaking. The swirling shadow collapsed in on itself like a curtain being yanked shut. And then it was gone. On the other end of the line, my mom was asking if I was okay, like she could hear something in my voice. And I lied. I said I was just tired. That was it. Just tired. Because how do you tell your mother you woke up to a shadow tornado above your bed like it was waiting for you? After that night, I made my little sister Tessa sleep in my room whenever I could convince her. I played it off like we were having sleepovers, but really I just couldn't stand the idea of being alone in the dark again. And then, again, it went quiet. Years. Until last year. I was 20, and it came back, but differently. Not dramatic at first. Almost patient. Like it had learned I'd grown up, and it didn't need to announce itself with a full-on nightmare. My bed would rock sometimes. Just enough to notice. Not a big shake, more like a slow, unsettling sway. Every time, I'd grab my phone and check for earthquake alerts. Nothing. No tremors reported. No explanation. Sometimes I'd feel what I swear was my cat hopping onto the bed and curling up next to my legs. That familiar little weight. The warmth. I'd turn to pet her, and there would be nothing there. No cat. Sometimes she'd be across the house, and I'd hear her collar jingle from another room. And the creepiest part? It followed me once. Not in a visible way, but I felt it. I was on a trip, down in New Orleans, and one night in the hotel, the bed did that same subtle rocking. In a different city, in a different building, hundreds of miles from my apartment. That's when it stopped being, maybe my house is old, or maybe I'm just tired. That's when it felt personal. Honestly, that version of it messed with me more than the big, obvious horror moments. Because when something is subtle, it creeps into your day. It makes you doubt your own senses. It makes you feel like you're slowly losing your grip. I got so fed up, so angry, that I finally told my friend Mira, who's into Wiccan practice and protective work. I didn't even know how to ask without sounding ridiculous, but she didn't laugh. She just listened. Then she mailed me a couple of protection stones and told me how to keep them, where to place them, what to do if I felt that presence again. And whether it's belief, coincidence, placebo, whatever you want to call it, after I started keeping those stones nearby, it stopped. The rocking stopped. The phantom cat weight stopped. The name whispers stopped. Not long after that, my boyfriend, Jonah, moved in. And having another person in the space with me, someone grounded and alive and real, helped more than I expected. The apartment feels warmer now, less like it has corners where something can hide. But if I'm being honest with you, I still don't feel totally alone. Even on good nights, even when everything is normal. And that's the part that makes me furious sometimes. Why me? Why for so long? Why does it come and go like it owns a piece of my life? I've heard people say stuff like, that only happens if you're cursed, or that sounds like sleep paralysis, or maybe it's mental illness. And maybe any of those could be true. I'm not ruling anything out. I just don't know. All I know is I've lived with this shadow presence like it's been orbiting me my whole life. And even when it's quiet, I keep one part of myself braced, just in case it decides to step out of the dark again. So, let me tell you what happened today, because I still can't stop thinking about it. My mom and I were on this little road trip, headed out from my hometown and cutting through this huge stretch of open plains. You know the kind of place. Fields for miles, long fences, and those big fancy houses set way back from the road like they're trying not to be noticed. We'd just taken an exit off the main highway and ended up on this narrow back road that kept bending and curling through private land. There were a few cars ahead of us and a couple behind, but everyone was driving politely. leaving that comfortable space you give strangers when the road's single lane and curvy, and you're cruising around like 55, maybe closer to 60. We had an audiobook playing, something light to pass the time. The windows were up, the air in the car was doing that soft, steady whir, and everything felt normal. No dramatic weather, no obvious wind gusts, just that constant rush of air you get at speed and the hum of tires on pavement. I remember noticing the rumble strips off to the side too, those ridged lines meant to shake you awake if you drift too far. And then, as I rounded this gentle right-hand curve, we heard it. This voice. Not like someone humming, not like radio bleed. It was this eerie, operatic singing, like a distant performance you can't quite locate. Like you're walking through a parking lot outside a stadium, and you can almost make out the music, except it sounded close, too close, like it was somehow in the car with us. At first, my mom, Marilyn, just glanced at me with that look that says, "Did you hear that, or am I losing it?" I gave her the same look back, like, "Okay, so it's not just me." It stopped. We both sort of shrugged it off. And then it happened again. Marilyn finally goes, totally baffled, "Eli, was that singing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I heard it." But I still didn't fully believe it. So I turned the audiobook down, then up, then down again, trying to catch whether it was somehow part of the track. Like maybe the audio had some weird background noise or a distant choir baked into it. Nope. The moment I lowered it, the singing was still there, floating around like it didn't care what we were doing. So now we're both alert. I'm scanning the road, still driving steady, but my brain is doing that frantic thing where it's trying to solve the puzzle immediately. I asked Marilyn to check her phone, thinking maybe something was auto-playing in the background. She held it up, checked every app. Silent. Then she paused the audiobook on my phone just to eliminate every possibility. Still singing. We started doing the most ridiculous little experiments, like two people pretending we're calm while absolutely not being calm. Windows down, windows up, halfway down, listening hard. Leaning slightly like that would somehow help pinpoint where sound is coming from. But that's the thing. We couldn't place it. If the sound was coming from outside, it had to be loud, because we were moving fast, windows mostly up, and there were cars spaced out around us. And yet it didn't sound like it was coming from the car ahead, or behind, or even from the side of the road. It wasn't like, oh, someone's blasting music. It was shapeless, like it was everywhere and nowhere. And the voice itself, God, it was haunting. It wasn't cheerful or poppy or anything familiar. It felt like an aria, something mournful and swelling, like a siren calling from far away. The kind of sound that makes your skin tighten a little, not because it's loud, but because it feels wrong in the moment. Like your brain doesn't have a file folder for it. And what's strange is, it never got closer or farther. It didn't fade like a car passing would. It didn't shift direction. It was just present. Eventually, it stopped the way it started, without explanation. 1 second it was there, and the next second it wasn't. And all that was left was the normal road noise, and the audiobook paused on the screen, like a little witness. And I know how this sounds. I do. But I'm telling you, we were wide awake, totally sober, just driving through open country in the middle of the day, and we heard a woman's operatic voice singing with no clear source. So I've been turning it over in my mind ever since, trying to give it a logical home. Was it the wind catching the shape of the car just right? Some weird acoustics from the fields? Tires hitting a certain texture of pavement and resonating through the frame in a way that mimicked a voice? Or sound traveling strangely over flat land, bouncing off something we couldn't see? I honestly don't know. All I know is, For a few minutes on that back road, it felt like we were driving through a place that had its own soundtrack, and it didn't care whether we understood it or not. Okay, so I work at this little antique shop, the kind that always smells faintly like old books and furniture polish. And I'm not new to the fact that odd things happen here sometimes, like the usual, "did that just move?" stuff. But what happened today has been looping in my head all day, and I'm trying so hard to keep my feet on the ground about it. So earlier this afternoon, this customer comes in with her dog. Sweet little thing, kind of timid, maybe a spaniel mix. And I'm doing what everyone does, right? I crouch down a bit, smile, and in that stupid soft voice people use with dogs, I go, "Hey there, buddy." And I swear to you, I barely finished the last syllable before, immediately, there's this loud, sharp, crystal clear, "Hey there, buddy," right behind me. Except it wasn't just a random voice. It was my voice. Same pitch, same rhythm, same little sing-song cadence I use when I talk to animals. It wasn't muffled or distant like a recording, and it wasn't stretched out or warbly like an echo. It sounded like a person standing close by, just projecting it. Like someone had leaned right over my shoulder and thrown my own voice back at me. And here's the part that made my stomach drop. My coworker, Marin, didn't even hear me say it the first time. Not at all. She only heard the loud version. She looked up startled and went, "Whoa, why did you yell at the dog like that?" Like it was sudden and aggressive loud, the way you'd react if someone barked something out for no reason. I just stared at her and went, "I didn't yell. I barely even said anything." And she could tell I wasn't messing around. I straight up asked her, which would be so unlike her. Marin is not a prank person. She hates confrontation. She hates making scenes. She's the type who apologizes to mannequins. And she immediately got this tight, freaked out look and said, "No, I swear to you, no." Then she glanced around the shop like she suddenly didn't trust any corner of it. We both did that quick scan people do when something feels wrong. Like, who else is here? But the store is small. You can see most of it from the counter if you just turn your head. Marin even pointed out that she'd watched the last couple customers leave, and there wasn't anyone close enough to pull something like that off. The dog's owner was turned away, looking at a cabinet, and the dog got skittish right after it happened. Like ears back, tense body, looking around. And I want to be really clear about a few details because I keep trying to solve it. My phone wasn't near me. It was actually tucked away behind the counter, connected to the shop speakers because we had a holiday playlist going, some jazzy winter stuff. The music never cut out, never paused, nothing clicked or switched. So it didn't feel like some audio playback suddenly fired. Also, the acoustics in our shop are, honestly, kind of dead. Low ceiling, lots of fabric and clutter, narrow aisles. It's not one of those airy spaces where sound bounces around. There are a couple side rooms where sound can carry in a weird way, but I wasn't even near them. And this didn't behave like an echo anyway. No delay, no fading, no bounce. It was like a direct voice. What's making it worse is that this store already has a history. Not like, ooh, spooky antiques history, but real, shared, why did that happen moments. All of us, every person who works here, has had something strange happen at least once. Sometimes two of us at the same time, which is the only reason I don't automatically write it off as someone being tired or imagining things. But today's thing, the voice thing, is messing with me in a different way. Because I can handle an object moved. That could be vibration, settling shelves, someone bumped something earlier, a million boring explanations. But hearing my own voice, right after I spoke, so loud that someone else thought I shouted, and that same someone didn't even hear my original quiet sentence? That's the part that keeps catching in my brain. I'm trying to be logical. I know brains misattribute sounds sometimes. I know short phrases can be weirdly easy to mimic or confuse. I know weird acoustic pockets exist. But the timing was too perfect. I didn't even have time to finish the expression on my face. I hadn't even fully closed my mouth before it answered back. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Have you ever had something like that happen? Where you hear a voice that sounds exactly like you, or exactly like one specific person, but there's no clear source for it? I'm not trying to leap straight into paranormal, but I also can't pretend it didn't happen. I'm just really hoping there's a grounded explanation, or at least I'm not the only person who's experienced something this specific. Because right now, every time the shop gets quiet, I keep bracing for it to say something again. So, I must have been about 5 when this happened. And I know that's young, but I remember it in that sharp, crystal clear way you only remember the things that really scare you. It was winter, sometime around 7 in the evening. The kind of night where it's dark way too early, and the house feels warm and bright because someone's cooking. My parents, Mara and Vincent, were in the kitchen making dinner, and I was wandering around underfoot like kids do. At one point, the front door was open. I genuinely don't remember why. Maybe they were bringing something in, maybe checking on something outside, who knows. But I remember standing there, looking into the garden, curious about how it looked at night. Our garden wasn't big, just a little patch with a fence, and I'd seen it 1,000 times in daylight. But at night it felt mysterious. So I asked, "Can I step outside for a second?" They said yes, something casual, like they weren't thinking twice about it. And I went out. Just a few steps onto the cold ground. I remember turning around almost immediately, like, okay, I saw it, ready to go back inside. And that's when my stomach dropped. Because the front door was gone. Not like it was closed, not like it was hidden behind me. Gone. And not just the door, the whole house, the garden, everything. It was like someone had erased the world and left me standing in pure darkness. Pitch black, the kind that doesn't even feel real. And what freaked me out even more, there should have been streetlights. They always came on at night. There should have been some shape, some glow, something. But there was nothing. Just empty black. I screamed for my parents, "Mara! Vincent!" over and over. No answer. I started reaching out with my hands, sweeping my arms around like I could feel the house again if I just stretched far enough. I expected to touch the wall, the door frame, a plant, the fence, anything. But there was only air. It didn't even feel like my garden anymore. It felt like I was standing in a giant open space that went on forever. I didn't know what else to do, so I started walking straight ahead. And here's the part that still messes with my head. Our garden was small. If you walk forward for a few seconds, you hit the fence. If you keep going, you reach the gate. I should have bumped into something almost immediately, but I didn't. I walked and walked, minutes, not seconds, into that darkness, and nothing ever stopped me. I remember my shoelaces kept coming undone. They were the kind that always slipped loose. Normally I would have knelt down and tied them, but I couldn't even see my own shoes. I couldn't see my hands. It felt pointless, like trying to fix something in a void. I was crying, but it was a quiet kind of crying, like my body was too scared to make noise anymore. And then, way off in the distance, I saw light. 2 small strips at first, like someone had cracked a door open somewhere in the universe. I started moving faster, almost running, because it was the first proof that anything existed besides darkness. When I got close, I realized it was two doors. Just two doors standing there, side by side, like they belonged to a hallway that wasn't there. Both were shut. Light was leaking from underneath them, warm and yellow. I remember staring at that glow like it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I listened. Behind the door on the left, it was quiet. Dead quiet. So I reached my hand out for the handle. And right before my fingers touched it, I got dizzy. Not normal dizzy, not I stood up too fast. It was like the world tilted violently, like something grabbed the inside of my head and spun it. The darkness, the doors, the light, all of it started to swirl. And then, going. I blinked, and I was back at home. Not outside in the garden, not in darkness. I was standing inside the house, right in front of our front door, like I'd just been about to open it from the inside. I remember freezing there, completely still, trying to understand what had just happened. My legs felt numb. My mouth felt dry. The dizziness clung to me like I was car sick. I stayed there for what felt like forever, probably only a couple minutes, just staring. Then I ran to my room. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't even peek into the kitchen. I just went to my bed like I could hide inside it. A little while later, my parents called me for dinner like nothing happened. And I went. I sat at the table and ate and pretended I was fine, because I was terrified they'd be angry, like I'd done something wrong by stepping outside. I remember forcing myself to swallow food, even though my throat felt tight. And then, I never talked about it again. Years later, I wrote it down in a notebook, kind of like a diary entry, because it still wouldn't leave me alone. But that's the only proof I have, and even that came long after. Honestly, I still don't know what to make of it. Part of me wonders if it was some weird half-dream, like I wandered into that space between sleeping and waking. But the memory is so vivid. I can still feel the cold air and that awful, impossible emptiness. I can still hear the silence when I yelled my parents' names. And there's one more thing, too. My mom told me later in life that when I was even younger, like 2 or 3, I used to talk about seeing things in the house. She called them ghosts. She even claimed that one time she saw something herself. I don't remember any of that at all, but it always made me wonder if it connects somehow, or if it's just another strange story layered on top of a childhood that was already full of shadows. I don't know if I'd call what happened paranormal. I don't even know if it truly happened the way I remember it. But I do know this. It was the most terrified I've ever been in my life. And even now, telling it out loud, a part of me still feels like I'm standing in that dark, reaching for a door that should be there, and isn't. So this happened when I was back near my hometown, outside Nagpur. And I swear, even thinking about it now makes my stomach do that little flip. I'd matched with this girl, let's call her Mira, on Bumble. She was cute, ridiculously fun, and it was one of those easy, no-pressure situations because I was leaving India soon anyway. I was moving to Canada in a few weeks, so it wasn't meant to be some big, serious love story. Just a couple of weeks of good company and chaos in the best way. Mira worked in a research role at a law university way out on the outskirts. She actually lived on campus, and the whole area was bordered by this massive forest. Like, proper forest. She'd randomly send me videos of snakes sliding across the pathways. Once it was a cobra, and I remember just staring at my phone like, what kind of campus is this? Meanwhile, she was totally chill about it, like it was a normal Tuesday. I'd ride my scooter out there to see her, something like 20-something kilometers each way, and we'd hang out, drink a bit, mess around, laugh like idiots. Honestly, some of the most fun dates I've ever had. She had this energy where everything felt like an adventure. Anyway, one evening, after we'd been out and we were heading back to drop her off at campus, I took a wrong turn. Neither of us really knew the area well. She was new to the city, and I hadn't been around those outskirts much either. It was around 7:30-ish, already dark because the sun had set, and the road was this muddy, narrow stretch cutting right alongside the forest. I remember telling her to check maps, and she's behind me on the scooter like, "Yeah, I'm trying." But her phone had zero signal. Mine didn't have connection either. She said something like, "I think we're still generally going the right direction." And I was like, "Fine, we'll just keep going and eventually we'll hit something familiar." And we did start to feel like we were getting out of the deeper part. Like the air even felt different, less closed in. We were talking casually, half laughing about how dumb it was to get lost so close to campus, when I saw it. On the right side of the road, just off the edge where the trees start, there was this figure. Not an animal, not a person in a normal way. It looked like a tall, human-shaped silhouette, kind of masculine in build. But it didn't have details. No face, no clothes, nothing. Just this perfectly man-shaped darkness, completely black. And around it there was this weird, radiant white glow, like an aura. It wasn't like a flashlight beam or headlights reflecting. This thing looked like it was producing its own light. And here's what makes it worse. The only real light on that road was my scooter's headlamp. At first, my brain tried to do that thing where it forces an explanation. Like maybe it's a tree stump, maybe it's a dude standing there, maybe it's my drunk imagination stitching shadows together. So I slowed down without even meaning to, because I was trying to understand what I was looking at. And then it vanished. Not like it walked away or stepped behind a tree. It was just there, and then it wasn't. Like someone turned off a screen. I went cold. I didn't even speak for a few seconds. My whole body just went into panic mode, and I remember twisting the throttle and taking off, like pure instinct. Get out, get out, get out. And I'm telling myself, okay, you're drunk. You're seeing things. You've had too much rum, too many beers. This is your brain being stupid. So I shout back to Mira like, I think I need to stop for a second. I swear I just saw something. And then she says, in this voice I can still hear clearly, Bro. The chills that hit me in that moment, I can't even describe it. It was like my spine turned to ice. Because if it was just me, I could have written it off as alcohol, darkness, whatever. But she saw it. She saw the same thing, at the same time, and her reaction wasn't curiosity. It was fear. We didn't talk much after that. We just focused on getting back to the campus road, and eventually we did. We made it out. But the whole ride, it felt like the forest was watching us, like the dark had weight. This happened in late 2023, and not long after that I moved to Canada, where I still live now. Mira and I don't really talk anymore. Life moved on. She got into something serious later, and that was that. But she'll always have this weird, permanent place in my memory, because we shared something that felt unreal. Like we accidentally stepped into the wrong version of the world for a minute. And the truth is, I've barely told anyone. I don't even know how to explain it without sounding insane. But I know what I saw. And I know I'm not the only one who saw it. So, I moved into this place about 14 months ago, and for most of that time, I've chalked everything up to normal, old house stuff. You know what I mean. Wood shifting, pipes ticking, the occasional creak that sounds like someone took one careful step in the hallway. Sometimes I'll hear this Soft little flurry of noises in the kitchen, like cabinets settling or something lightly bumping the counter. And every single time I go check, nothing. Not a dish out of place. No sign of anyone, or anything. Eventually you stop reacting. It just becomes the house breathing. But then my boyfriend, well, I'll call him Mateo, started having these weird moments. And at first I honestly thought, okay, this is probably that half-awake hallucination thing. Hypnopompic stuff. Your brain loading in the world before it's fully online. The first time, he tells me he woke up and saw me open the bedroom door and step inside. He said he sat up and went, "Hey babe," and that I just backed out, like I'd been caught doing something. Then I closed the door. Here's the thing. That night I wasn't even in the bed with him. I'd moved to the guest room because I couldn't sleep, and I had earbuds in. So sure, if I'd gotten up and wandered in there half asleep, it's possible I didn't register it, didn't remember, whatever. Sleepwalking is embarrassing, but explainable, right? Then it happened a second time. He said he opened his eyes and saw me standing near the window, between his side of the bed and the curtains. Just standing there, looking down at him. He said the room was so dark he couldn't make out my face, but the shape, the hair, everything about it looked like me. And he reached his hand over to my side of the bed. And I wasn't there. Again, I was sleeping in the other room that night. So now I'm sitting there like, oh my God, am I doing something creepy in my sleep? Like, am I silently hovering over my own boyfriend while he sleeps? That's mortifying. I told him, if you see me again, please just touch me and wake me up. Don't just stare at me and try to solve it like a puzzle. And then this morning, he tells me the third one. He said he woke up the way he always does in these moments, because he can feel someone watching him. That intense, prickly sensation, like your body knows before your eyes do. So he opens his eyes, and he sees me sitting upright in bed, but not normal sitting up in bed. He said I was sitting too still, too poised, and I was smiling. Not a small smile, not a sleepy grin. He said it was huge, like stretched from one side of my face to the other in this way that didn't look human, like the mouth was just wrong, too wide, too deliberate. And then, this part makes my stomach flip. He said the thing that looked like me lifted a hand and curled its fingers, like, come here, like it wanted him closer. Mateo told me he remembered what I said, so he reached his hand out to touch me, to wake me up. And he felt me. He felt my shoulder, my arm, warm and heavy, lying down asleep next to him, while he was still looking at the thing sitting up. He said he just froze, because his hand was on me, real me, sleeping, while that other version of me stayed upright, smiling that impossible smile. I asked him, like, are you sure you weren't just seeing me and then realized I was beside you? And he shook his head and goes, no, Lena, it wasn't even physically possible to smile that big. And I'm trying so hard to be the logical one here, because it always happens as he's waking up. That's textbook, right? Your brain can project stuff. It can create a figure. It can turn a shadow into a person. It can make you feel watched. But what messes with me is, he goes back to sleep afterward. Also, I'm a stupidly light sleeper. If he touches me in bed, I normally wake up instantly. And he swears he was literally touching me while I stayed completely asleep. So, of course, my brain starts rummaging through old memories, trying to connect dots that probably don't connect. Like, a couple months after I moved in, I used to hear my dog, Junie, in the kitchen at night. This really specific sound of her crunching kibble and then slurping water, and her nails clicking on the floor. And every time, I'd look and she wouldn't be down there. She'd be upstairs on my bed, dead asleep, and her bowl would be basically empty anyway. It only ever happened when Junie was staying with me. She splits time with my ex. So I figured maybe she was sneaking past me and I just didn't notice. It stopped happening and I forgot about it. But now I'm sitting here like, what if my brain wasn't wrong to remember it as so distinct? What if it wasn't her? What if it was something mimicking her the way this thing is mimicking me? And listen, I know how that sounds. So I keep coming back to the sane explanation. Mateo is half dreaming. He's hallucinating on the edge of waking. Nobody else who slept here has ever said they saw anything. I've never seen anything. I only hear the regular weird little house sounds, and I'm completely convinced it's just the place settling. But I'll admit it. The detail about the smile, how non-human it was, got under my skin in a way the other two didn't. So I did what you do when you're trying to calm someone down. And also, maybe, calm yourself down without admitting you're doing it. I walked around the house last night murmuring a prayer my grandma used to say. I opened windows. I told myself it was symbolic, that it was just for comfort. And tomorrow, I'm probably going to burn some sage. More as a, see, I did something, you're safe, kind of gesture. Because part of me thinks if he believes the house has been cleared, his brain will stop playing tricks on him. But then again, when he hears the same little kitchen noises I've always heard, we'll be lying in bed listening together, and he'll whisper, "That's not the house." And I'll whisper back, "It is the house." And lately, I'm not as certain as I used to be. Okay, so before I get into this, you have to understand my buddy. I'll call him Drew here. Drew is one of those people who's always had paranormal stories. Like, not in a I saw something once way. I mean, he's told me about figures in old hallways, weird voices in the woods, shadowy shapes near the hospital where his aunt worked. The kind of stuff that makes you laugh until you see his face and realize he's dead serious. And the thing is, where I live, it's the complete opposite of spooky. It's one of those really nice, quiet neighborhoods where everybody knows everybody. People wave. Dogs have play dates. Nothing bad ever happens. It's the kind of place you'd think a ghost would get bored in. So, May 2019. The Toronto Raptors had just made the finals, and I was losing my mind with excitement. I had so much energy buzzing in me that I couldn't just sit inside. I had to burn it off somehow. So I go out back to my trampoline and start doing flips like an idiot, just riding that adrenaline. Drew's on the back steps watching me, arms crossed, just kind of smirking, until he suddenly goes, really quietly, like his throat tightens up. Evan? And I'm like, yeah? What's up? I bounce to a stop and look over at him, and he's pale. Like, actually pale. And that's what got me, because Drew doesn't scare easy. He's the type who watches horror movies alone with the lights off just to prove he can. He lifts his hand and points toward our neighbor's yard, toward this big old spruce tree near the fence line. And I look, and I don't see anything. So I'm like, what? What are you pointing at? And he goes, there was someone watching us. They were peeking from behind that tree, and then they moved. My stomach kind of drops, because the way he said it wasn't dramatic. It was worried, like he was trying not to panic. So I climb up onto the deck to get a better view. I stand there scanning the yard, the fence, the tree. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Just the normal backyard quiet. I wait. Honestly, probably like 10 minutes. Then I do the dumb teenage thing where you get brave because you don't want to admit you're nervous. I shout, "Hello? Who's there?" Silence. So of course I decide I'm going to be a hero. I hop down and walk straight over to the tree, heart pounding like I'm about to catch someone. I look behind it. Nothing. No footprints, no rustling, nobody. But even after I walked back, Drew didn't relax. He kept staring at that spot like he was waiting for something to lean out again. And that should have been the end of it, right? Just one creepy moment, maybe a misunderstanding. Except, it wasn't. Jump to January 2021. Another friend of mine, let's call her Maya, lives a few streets over in the same neighborhood. One night we're on a video call, just chatting, nothing weird. And mid-sentence, she snaps her head toward the front of her house like she heard something right outside. I'm like, "What's wrong?" And she whispers, "Someone just pounded on my front door." Her parents were out of town at the time, and she was home alone. And it was late, like that heavy kind of nighttime where everything outside feels too quiet. Then, no warning, Maya backs away from her phone, and I hear her voice get shaky. She goes, "There's someone outside my window." And I'm like, "What? Who?" And she says this sentence that made my blood turn cold. He's completely black. Like not wearing black, he's black. And his eyes are yellow, like glowing. Then Maya screams, this full, raw, panicked scream, and the phone jolts like she almost drops it. And she's crying, yelling, "It's inside! Evan, it's inside my house!" I don't even think. I just grab my hoodie and run out the door. I don't drive. I take my bike because it's faster in the neighborhood, and it's only a few minutes away if you cut through the side streets. The entire ride I'm expecting, I don't know, something to step out in front of me. Something to be waiting. I get there, pounding on her door, and she throws it open and basically yanks me inside. She's shaking so hard she can barely talk, and when she finally does, she just keeps repeating, "It's gone. It just disappeared." No broken windows, no open doors, nothing out of place. Just her fear filling the whole house like smoke. And we tried to rationalize it. We really did. Stress, imagination, shadows, anything. But then, summer 2022, I'm in my backyard again, this time with another friend. Let's call him Noah. We're having a little fire going, just messing around, roasting snacks, talking about nothing important. Noah has always been sensitive, I guess. He gets spooked easily, and he swears he picks up on weird vibes in places other people don't. He's standing near the edge of the yard, kind of dancing around, being goofy. Then he just freezes, like his whole face drains. And he goes, very quietly, "Do you see that?" I turn, expecting maybe an animal or a person. He points toward the same neighbor's yard. And he says, "There's a shadow, a man. It's huge, like 8 feet tall." I scan the yard. Nothing. The trees are still. The fence line is empty. But then I notice something that makes my skin prickle. There's this weird patch of fog. Not like a misty evening fog everywhere, just a single cloud of it, sitting low in the middle of the yard like someone poured it there. No breeze, no reason, just fog in one place. Noah wouldn't stop staring at it, wouldn't step closer, just kept backing up like whatever he saw could move again at any second. And then the last thing, this one's just me. This past summer, I get home late from a movie. It's quiet, lights off, neighborhood asleep. I step out of the car, shut the door, and as I'm walking up my driveway, I hear this scream, like a full-on, blood-curdling scream, coming from the woods behind the houses. Not like a fox, not like a dog, a scream that sounded human. Every hair on my arms stood up. I ran inside so fast I nearly tripped. Then I went to the window and stared out, scanning the trees, the street, the shadows between houses. Nothing. No movement, no person, no animal, no sound afterward. Just quiet again, like the neighborhood swallowed it. And that's what messes with me the most. I've never actually seen it. Not clearly, not like they describe. But after the first time in 2019, I started getting this constant feeling of being watched, Like when you're alone, but your body refuses to believe you're alone. And after that, other weird things happened to me too. Stuff that freaked me out so bad I didn't even want to talk about it for a while. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something real, or if it's some kind of shared fear that's taken on a life of its own. All I know is, in the nicest, quietest neighborhood you can imagine, multiple people have described the same thing. And if I ever see it for myself, I'll never forget it. So this happened maybe late spring last year, back when I was still living at my mom and stepdad's place, before I ended up moving in with my Nana. There was this house up the dirt road that always made my family, you know the kind. Nothing bad you can point to, but every time you look at it, your stomach just tightens a little. It kept getting bought and put back on the market, over and over, but nobody ever actually stayed there long. My stepdad, Ronnie, told me this story he'd heard around town. Years ago, a family lived there and then, apparently, just vanished. Like, they left furniture, dishes, even kids' stuff behind, but took small personal things, like wallets, photos, and paperwork. Supposedly, authorities tracked them as far as the state line heading toward Arizona, and then it just stopped. No new reports, no sightings, nothing. Like they fell off the map. So of course, one day me, my brother Caleb, and our friend Mara decide we're going to go check it out. Because we're geniuses, obviously. The place looked exactly how you'd imagine. The porch was buried in dead leaves and snapped branches, and weeds had taken over like they owned the land. There was even this skinny little tree pushing up through one corner of the porch boards, like the house was getting swallowed slowly from underneath. The driveway had this weird carport thing, just a roof, no walls, like someone started building it and gave up. Off to the side, there was a smaller shed, and behind the house was a whole mess of stuff. A gated pasture area, a beat-up horse ring, 2 locked shipping containers, and a couple huge barn-like buildings that were open on one side. There were also 2 garages, and inside them were these long, narrow trenches running down both sides, like someone had dug channels into the concrete. That part bothered me more than it should have. But the weirdest detail? When we finally got to the house itself and started peeking around inside, there were these odd cutouts in the walls in multiple rooms. And each cutout had a piece of drywall that fit it perfectly, like a puzzle piece you could pop in and out. Some openings seemed to go into the walls. One looked like it led under a bathtub. Another was tucked where a closet should have been. None of them were big enough for a person to crawl into, but still, why would you even make those? Both the front and back doors were locked. We circled the place like we were in a low-budget crime movie, found a window that wasn't latched right, and climbed through. We dropped into what looked like a dining area with a little bar counter, and that opened into a living room. Everything felt like the air didn't move right. We walked down a hallway, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The bathroom had a broken toilet and an old medicine cabinet. One bedroom had literally one thing in it, a paperback book, face down in the middle of the floor. The living room had one lonely chair, angled slightly like someone had been sitting in it recently, even though there was dust everywhere. Then we went past the kitchen and pantry and found the master bedroom. And I'm telling you, the second we stepped into that room, all 3 of us felt it. Like a pressure shift, like the room didn't want us there. It was mostly empty except for this cracked plastic light cover on the floor. The blinds were down on the windows, but one window looked like the blinds had been dragged downward, like someone slid their whole body down them, leaving them bent and half collapsed. But we still stayed, because again, geniuses. I'd downloaded a couple ghost hunting apps on my phone earlier, mostly as a joke. I didn't really believe they'd do anything. We sat in the living room, trying to act brave, and I opened this one app that showed an EMF meter and claimed it could translate words it picked up into text. A little text box popped up and showed spray. Then a second later, beside you. And Caleb, without even speaking, slowly looked down. Right next to his shoe was a can of bug spray. Not just any bug spray, a bright red can, the kind you'd instantly notice. None of us remembered it being there, and I swear on everything, we would have seen it when we walked in. We're all staring at it, that cold silence settling in, and I switch apps to a voice recorder one that claimed it could catch EVP-type sounds. I hit record, and we just sit there, barely breathing. Maybe a minute passes. Then we hear a loud bang from down the hallway, like a cabinet slamming, like a door hitting a frame. We jumped up and rushed back down the hall, but nothing was moving. No doors were open, no windows had blown in. But that medicine cabinet in the bathroom, the one we'd looked at earlier, now looked slightly off, like it had been messed with. The worst part? My phone caught the bang on the recording. That was enough for us. We didn't even argue. We climbed out the same window like our lives depended on it, but we didn't leave the property. We ran to that little side shed under the carport roof and tried to calm down. Inside were some rusty tools and a torn bag of dog food. We huddled in there, talking fast, half laughing the way people do when they're scared and trying not to admit it. I set my phone up on a metal beam across the shed wall to record us while we talked, just in case anything else happened. A few minutes later, I grabbed my phone to check the footage, and my screen was completely wrecked. It wasn't cracked. It wasn't dead. It was glitching, hard. The entire display was covered in streaks and flashing lines and blocks of pixelated color, like a broken TV channel. It kept pulsing and jumping, and no matter what I pressed, it wouldn't respond. It was like the phone had gotten scrambled. And after that, it never worked again. I ended up tossing it later. I know, everyone says, why would you throw it away? But at the time, I just wanted it out of my hands, out of my room, out of my life. And here's the part that still makes me feel weird when I think about it. While we were inside the house, we kept hearing footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate steps in the weeds, like someone circling the place. And more than once, all of us saw a light flicker in one of the windows, like somebody was moving around in there, even though we were the only ones inside. So yeah, that's it. I honestly don't know what happened up there. I don't know if it was someone messing with us, some electrical thing I can't explain, or something we weren't supposed to walk into. But I do know this. That house didn't feel empty, not even close. So, I have this running list in my phone. Nothing dramatic on the surface, just dates and times, little notes. Except the things I'm writing down aren't normal. They're the kind of moments that stick to your ribs, the kind you replay while you're folding laundry or brushing your teeth, and you still can't make them make sense. There are two that I think about the most. The first one happened late summer, 8/27/20, just after 6 a.m. My partner, Marcus, had already left for work, and my little boy Eli, he was 3 then, was still knocked out asleep. The house was quiet in that early morning way, where even the fridge hum feels loud. I got up and went to the bathroom. Normal, half-awake routine. And when I walked back out into the hallway, I heard this soft crying. Not loud, not sobbing, just a low, sad little sound, like someone trying not to be heard. My first thought was Eli, like maybe he woke up and wandered out of his room. The crying sounded like it was coming from the den, and our place is small, so if he'd gone in there, he would have had to pass right by me. But I figured maybe I missed him. Maybe I was still sleepy. So I walked into the den. Nothing. No Eli. No movement. And as soon as I stepped in, the crying seemed to drift, like it was coming from the kitchen now. It wasn't fading away like a noise you imagined. It was there, just in a different place. I went into the kitchen, and I swear to you, it sounded like it was back in the den again, like it was playing this awful little game, pulling me from room to room. And I remember getting this sudden rush of frustration, because what else do you do when your brain is trying to find a normal explanation and it can't? I started walking back toward the den and I called out, louder than I meant to, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying?" And it stopped. Not gradually, not like it got quieter, just cut off, like someone flipped a switch. The silence afterward was so complete it made my skin prickle. I went straight to Eli's room, heart thumping, and he was still asleep, deep asleep. No sniffles, no damp cheeks, no little hiccups, nothing. And I stood there for a minute just staring at him, trying to convince myself it had to be the plumbing, or the neighbor, or some weird echo. But I knew that sound hadn't come from my kid. The second one happened almost a year later, 8/6/21, around 7:20 a.m. Again, Marcus was already at work. It was just me and Eli, except he was 4 by then, more talkative, more aware of everything. We were sitting together on the couch. No TV, no music, no phone videos. Just one of those rare, quiet mornings where you're both kind of waking up slowly. And then, out of nowhere, a man's voice said, clear as day, "Renee." My name. Not muffled. Not like it came from a TV in another room. It sounded like someone was right there in the house, speaking normally. I froze, like completely still. I didn't even answer, because my brain was scrambling, trying to decide if I'd imagined it, trying to find anything that would make it make sense. And then Eli looked up at me and said, "Mama, did you hear that?" Something said Renee. I felt my stomach drop. Because okay, if it was in my head, he wouldn't have reacted. And he wasn't laughing or being silly. He looked serious, confused. Then he tilted his head toward the hallway and said, very matter of fact, "I think it went into my room." And I swear, right after he said that, the TV turned on by itself. I just sat there, staring at the TV, and then at my kid, and it felt like the whole house was holding its breath. Those 2 moments are the ones that replay the most, especially because Eli remembers the second one like it happened yesterday. Every once in a while he'll bring it up, casually, like he's talking about a cartoon, and it sends chills straight through me. And the thing is, those aren't the only entries in that list. There have been nights where we've been jolted awake by these huge bangs, like something heavy slamming down, so loud it rattles your nerves, loud enough that even Marcus woke up, and he can sleep through almost anything. And then there was one time. This one still makes my throat tighten just thinking about it, when I heard a woman's voice right by my left ear. Panicked, urgent, like she was right there with me. She said, "Call 911. I felt her breath. That's the part that messes with me the most. It wasn't just sound. It was close, intimate, like someone leaning in. Nothing in this house has ever felt evil. Not like that. But some of it has been so startling, so physical, that it's hard not to feel shaken afterward. And I keep thinking maybe I should have someone come by, someone who actually knows what they're doing, some kind of reading, some kind of check. I just don't even know where to begin, or what to call what I'm looking for. I just know I've been writing it down because I need proof for myself that it happened, that I'm not making it up, that it isn't just my mind playing tricks. Because when it's quiet again, when the sun is up and everything looks normal, it would be so easy to convince yourself it was nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like something in my house noticed me. So, when we first moved into this place, it honestly felt like a blank slate, quiet, empty, almost too normal. And I remember thinking, okay, great, nothing weird here. My partner, let's call him Ethan, is the biggest skeptic I've ever met. The kind of person who wants 3 explanations, a diagram, and a weather report before he'll admit something is even slightly off. Which is funny, because when he was a kid, he had these experiences that freaked his family out so much that his mom actually brought someone in to check things out. He hates talking about it now, like he's embarrassed it ever happened. But lately, things have been happening here that we just can't neatly explain away. The first thing was small, but it got under our skin. In the middle of the night, we'd hear this sound in our bedroom, like aerosol cans being nudged or rolled around. At first, we both went, mouse, obviously. So we checked everything. We moved stuff, cleaned, looked for droppings, listened for scratching, even checked behind furniture like absolute maniacs. Nothing. No evidence, no clues. Just the sound. Like something was slowly pushing those cans around, right when the house was at its quietest. Then there's the gaming console. We've tried so hard to debunk this one. We turned off any voice controls, made sure nothing was paired weirdly, checked settings, unplugged it, replugged it, everything. And still, every now and then, the console will just turn on by itself. Like someone physically pressed the button. No one near it, no controller bump, no updates running. It's not constant, which almost makes it worse. It's random, like it's choosing its moments. One day, I was in the living room with our little one, Milo, who's about 1.5 years. He was on my knee, calm, and we were completely alone in the house. And suddenly it sounded like one of his big plastic toy bins got shaken, hard. Not a little rattle, a loud, deliberate shake, like someone grabbed it and jostled it. I froze. Full body, stomach drop kind of freeze. I actually remember whispering, "Hello?" like an idiot. Like, what was I expecting to hear back? A few days after that, Ethan and I were sitting in the living room late morning, maybe around 10:30, and the TV was off. No music, no phones playing anything. And we heard this really clear, bright, bell-like sound. We both looked at each other instantly because it sounded exactly like Milo's little xylophone toy. So we got up and tried to recreate it. We hit the toy, moved it, tapped around the area, checked if something fell, checked if a metal object could have made the sound. Nothing matched, not even close. And that was the moment I saw it shift for Ethan. Not like full panic or anything, just this tiny crack in the skeptic wall. He didn't even want to say it out loud at first, but eventually he went, really quietly, "Okay, that's weird. I don't love that." Another thing, this one creeps me out in such a specific way. We have this small canvas print of Milo's photo hanging above the stairs. It's not somewhere we brush against. You can't casually bump it. It's just up there. And one day I walked past and it was crooked, like noticeably wonky, like someone had adjusted it and didn't straighten it properly after. I see it every single day. I would have noticed if it had been like that before. And then, just recently, I was awake in the early hours breastfeeding. The house was still, all the doors and windows shut, no draft, no breeze. And I heard the baby gate rattle. That unmistakable plastic and metal shaking sound, like someone tested it with their hand. I sat there holding Milo, heart thumping, listening for it to happen again. It didn't. Just that one burst of movement, and then silence. But the most unsettling thing, honestly the thing that made me feel cold, was what happened to Ethan. He woke up one morning with scratches on him. Not 1 or 2 little marks. I mean multiple scratches, red, slightly cut, like someone dragged something across his skin. There were several, like 7 or 8 lines in a few spots. And here's the thing, he bites his nails. He has basically no nails, and he sleeps in a t-shirt. So it's not like he accidentally clawed himself in his sleep. He even tried to recreate it, scratching himself hard, just to prove it could happen naturally, and he couldn't. The marks didn't look the same, and he literally can't get that kind of scratch with how short his nails are. What really got him was that this exact kind of thing used to happen when he was little. The same weird scratches, the same confusion. He didn't want to connect the dots, but you could tell it bothered him on a deeper level than he wanted to admit. And the scratches didn't just vanish. They stayed faintly visible for days. Now I'm sitting here feeling uneasy, like genuinely unsettled in my own home. Not because I want to believe in something scary, I don't. I want everything to have a tidy explanation. But when your child's toys are making noises by themselves, and the things meant to keep him safe are rattling like someone touched them, it hits different. And then there was this one night that still makes my skin crawl a little. Milo started crying in the dark like normal baby stuff, nothing unusual. And then suddenly he sat up, just stopped crying instantly, and stared into the corner of the room. Just stared. Quiet. Still. Ethan whispered, "What is he doing?" Because Milo never does that. And I remember watching his little face, so serious, so focused, like he was looking at someone standing there. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's all separate little coincidences and parenting paranoia and old electronics being weird. But if you'd asked Ethan a month ago, he would have laughed at the idea of anything strange going on. And now? Now he's the one who keeps saying, "I don't know, something feels off." So, I've lived in Michigan my whole life. 31 years, same general area, same familiar skies. My parents split up when I was a kid. Mom moved across town, but my dad stayed in the old house I grew up in. It's this big, stubborn, too quiet place that always feels a little too empty when you're there alone. My dad, Frank, is 68, and somehow he still hasn't retired. He's the kind of guy who treats rest like it's a bad habit. Old school, loud opinions, proud, and the type who'll climb a ladder by himself even when everyone begs him not to. He's also got this little ritual I've always loved. We'll sit out back, share a cigar, and just talk about nothing and everything. Nothing and everything. Out of all 4 of us kids, I'm the youngest, and I've always been the one closest to him. So I check in a lot. Partly because I want to, and partly because I worry he'll try to wrestle a lawnmower or a gutter problem into submission, and nobody will be there if it goes wrong. Anyway, last Tuesday evening, I'm driving back toward my apartment, and my phone rings around 8:15. It's Dad. Not unusual. But the second I answer, he goes, really casually, like he's annoyed with me. "Why do you keep telling me to come downstairs? I'm sitting right here." And I'm like, "Dad, what are you talking about?" He says, "You've been yelling up at me from the basement, telling me to come down there, like you need me." My stomach just drops, because I haven't been to the house all day. I tell him, "I'm not even there, I'm like half an hour away." And he gets quiet for a second, like he's trying to decide whether to argue or not. Then he goes, "No, I know my kids' voices. That was you. Clear as day." That's the part that got me. Because it wasn't, "I heard something." It was certainty. He sounded rattled in this very specific way, like he was trying hard not to sound rattled. So I turn the car around and go straight to the house. When I get there, he's acting tough about it, but he keeps repeating, "I'm not losing it. I'm not. I know what I heard." And I tell him, I believe him. I do. We walk through every room, upstairs, downstairs, basement, closets, backyard, garage, everything. No one's there. Doors locked, windows fine, nothing out of place. Eventually he shrugs it off like he always does, but I can tell it sticks with him. A few days go by, nothing. Then the following Saturday, Dad calls me around late afternoon, says he got held up at work and asks if I can swing by and run the sprinklers. The system at that house is old. Each section has to be turned on manually. So I'm there flipping a switch, waiting, flipping the next one, waiting. In between sections, I sit on the couch and put on some random TV just to kill time. I'm sitting there maybe 40 minutes, totally relaxed, half paying attention to whatever's on the screen. And I hear a voice. Not from the TV, not from outside. It's coming through the vents, like the sound is riding the ductwork. It's drifting up from the basement entertainment area. At first, I can't make out the words, so I sit up fast and mute the TV. And then it happens again. And I swear to you, my whole body went cold, because it sounded like my mother. Clear, familiar. The exact tone she used when she wanted you to do something right now without asking twice. Hey, can you come down here? Then a pause. And then again, slightly different, same meaning. Can you come downstairs for a second? Come down here, will you? Can you come down here? Over and over, like it was trying different versions until one of them worked. But that voice was so perfect, it made my eyes sting. Like my brain didn't even have time to question it. It just went straight to recognition. And the creepiest part is, it wasn't comforting. It didn't feel like, oh, Mom's here. It felt like something putting on a costume and getting it almost too right. I stood there frozen, staring at the hallway like the basement door was about to breathe. Every instinct in me said, do not go down there. Not be careful. Not check it out. Just don't. So I didn't. I grabbed my keys, walked out, locked the door behind me, and went straight to my car. And then I just sat there in the driveway, heart pounding, waiting for my dad to come home because I didn't want him walking into that house alone without knowing what I'd heard. When he pulled in, I told him everything, every detail. I tried to convince him to stay somewhere else for the night, my place, my sister's, anywhere. He listened, nodded, and then did the most dad thing possible. He shook his head, muttered something like, I'm not letting some nonsense chase me out of my own house, and went inside anyway. And I just sat there thinking, what the hell is going on in that house? Because I can handle creaks. I can handle a weird noise. I can handle my dad saying, maybe I imagined it. But 2 separate times, voices we recognize, asking us to come to the basement? That doesn't feel like imagination. That feels like something trying to lure you. So, I didn't even know how to label this when it happened, because it's not exactly a dream story, and it's not exactly just life experience either. It's more like one of those moments where everything lines up a little too neatly, and you're left staring at it like, okay, what was that? I've got a friend. Her name's Marisol, and she swears she's an empath. And honestly, I've seen her do this thing where she'll randomly text someone like, hey, are you okay? And the person will be like, wait, how did you know I was having a rough day? She says she gets these hits, like feelings that don't feel like hers, and sometimes it's like something is trying to get a message through her. So earlier this week, Marisol texts me out of nowhere and she goes, this is going to sound strange, but something really maternal is here, and it wants you to know it loves you. Like, it's always watching over you. And I'm like, my mom is alive. Very much alive. So I text back, okay, maternal how? What does that even mean? And she tells me, it feels motherly, but older, like elderly maternal. Immediately my stomach kind of drops because my grandmother, Lillian, passed away a couple years ago, late spring, around May. Marisol knows that. She doesn't know a ton of details, but she knows I took it hard. Like ugly cry, can't talk about it without my throat closing kind of hard. Here's where it gets weirder. I've been dreaming about my grandma a lot lately. Not constant, but enough that I noticed. And it's always this same strange theme. She's alive in the dream, but there's this looming feeling that she's going to die soon. Not how she actually passed, just that sense of it's about to happen. And in real life, my mom has been having health issues. She was in the hospital for several days with heart problems, and I've been terrified something is going to happen to her. So my partner, Eli, and I had been saying, okay, this is probably just stress. Your brain is blending the fear you have about your mom into this symbol of your grandma. Which honestly makes sense. Like, that's the logical explanation, right? So when Marisol says the message feels maternal but elderly, and I tell her, that's wild, because I've been dreaming about my grandma, she goes, oh my God, wait. And she tells me that the energy, whatever she was feeling, got excited. Like enthusiastic. Like yes. Like it was relieved I'd connected the dots. And she says it kept pushing this feeling of, tell her I love her. Tell her I'm here. And then she tells me something else that I did not expect. She goes, it also wants you to breathe. Like, slow down. Stop being so hard on yourself. Everything's going to be okay. And I'm already sitting there kind of chilled because, okay, sure, that's comforting. But then she says, and this is oddly specific, but it's telling me you need to ease up on the guy you live with, the one who isn't your husband. Like, keep the peace. He's dealing with his own stuff, and he hasn't learned what you've learned yet. And I just stare at my phone. Because yes, there is a guy living with us, Troy, my partner's longtime friend. And Troy is a lot sometimes. He's messy, a little aimless, and I get irritated because I feel like I'm always the adult in the room. But the thing is, I barely talk to Marisol about him. I think I mentioned him once months ago, and it was basically just, he's kind of lazy. Not some deep conversation about his inner wounds or whatever. But here's what really got me. Eli says almost the exact same thing to me sometimes. Like word for word energy. He hasn't had the experiences you've had. He's still figuring it out. Don't be so hard on him. And Eli has never said that to Marisol. Ever. There's no way she'd be repeating something she heard from him. So now I'm sitting there with all of these overlapping pieces. My grandma showing up in my dreams lately. My mom's health stuff putting me in a constant state of fear. My empath friend randomly reaching out with an elderly maternal message. The yes, yes reaction when I mention the dreams. The oddly specific roommate advice that matches what my partner always tells me. And I'm just thinking, what are the chances? Marisol is completely convinced it was my grandma. Like, no question in her mind. And I want to believe that. Part of me really, really does. Another part of me is like, okay, coincidence exists. Pattern seeking exists. Stress does weird things to your brain. Maybe I'm seeing meaning because I want meaning. When I told Eli, he was calm about it. He didn't try to talk me into believing or not believing. He just said, take whatever you want from it. If it comforts you, let it comfort you. There's no wrong way to hold something like that. And that's kind of where I'm landing, because I've believed in paranormal stuff since I was a kid. I've always felt like there's more going on than we can see. But I'm also not the type who can turn my brain off and just accept something without questioning it. So I don't know. I really don't. All I know is, it shook me, in a gentle way. Like someone tapped my shoulder and reminded me to breathe. Reminded me I'm loved. Reminded me to soften a little. And whether it was truly my grandma, or my own fear and hope and grief weaving together into something that felt like her, it still kind of helped.